Chapter 1309. At this time, Chu Qingyan saw Water Spirit looking at her with a gentle expression, and spoke with a slightly hoarse voice. Now this subordinate understands that other than master, we still have you. This is truly gratifying. As if we no longer need to see master standing alone at the peak, there is finally someone by his side. A swan with ambition. The people under the heavens could only see his heroic figure spreading his wings, but they did not know how lonely he was on the road ahead. The appearance of the little princess was a dazzling light beside master, like a gentle breeze and a cloud by his side. Like a shadow, moving side by side, he no longer felt lonely. And with her intelligence and strength, she could also lead the Xiao cavalry to a wider road. Water Spirit. Chu Qingyan did not know what to say at this time. A long time ago, when she was by Big Ice Cube's side, she felt that she did not need anyone's permission. She did not need to please anyone. She only needed to confirm her position in Big Ice Cube's heart. The Xiao cavalry and the others, to her, were only people who protected Big Ice Cube. However, as she interacted with them and understood them, she realized that she had developed a different feeling towards the Xiao cavalry. While they protected Big Ice Cube, they were also protecting her. Although she knew that at the beginning, they did not like her, and did not even wish for her to obstruct Big Ice Cube's future path. After all, she was so weak and weak. But they were able to hide their displeasure under Big Ice Cube's orders, and risk their lives to protect her. Thus, she had a strong desire in her heart, and that was to become stronger. She wanted to no longer enjoy the protection of the Big Ice Cube, but to be able to stand beside him and fight side by side with him. Furthermore, she wanted to prove that she was not a rice worm, not a chick hiding behind the Big Ice Cube. She could also spread her wings and soar high. Furthermore, she no longer treated Earth Spirit and the others as ordinary passers-by. Instead, she sincerely wanted to keep them in her life. She wanted more and more to gain the recognition of the few cavalry leaders of the fierce cavalry. That had always been her wish, as if she was being recognized by her family, because they were the Xiao cavalry that Big Ice Cube treasured. Love me, love my dog. She also wanted to walk side by side with them. Until now, not only did she have her parents, Big Ice Cube, and a few other family members by her side, but all of the fierce cavalry were her brothers and sisters. They all said that she was the one who gave Big Ice Cube the warmth of a family member, but in reality, they were the ones who gave her the warmth of a family. She was extremely grateful that they had appeared in Big Ice Cube's life, and then walked into her life. She should be the one thanking him. Water Spirit. I'm very glad that His Highness has a group of companions who treat each other with sincerity. At the same time, I'm also very lucky to be able to meet all of you. In the vast sea of people, how many people miss each other every day? To be able to meet all of you, that's how many necks I broke in my previous life. Chu Qingyan walked forward and reached out to hold her hand. Her expression was emotional as she spoke. However, Water Spirit wanted to hold back her laughter, but in the end, she still burst out laughing. The sad atmosphere instantly disappeared. Chu Qingyan was very confused, but Water Spirit held her stomach and laughed. Little Princess Consort, you really are a living treasure. Fortunately, we didn't break our necks in this life, ha ha ha. Seeing that Water Spirit was laughing so hard that tears were about to flow out, she couldn't help but laugh out loud as well. That's right, we're very lucky. When we met, everyone was so positive, beautiful, and strong. Water Spirit couldn't hold back her laughter. Suddenly, she found herself being pulled into a gentle embrace. She was slightly stunned, but then she heard the little Princess Consort's gentle voice ring in her ears. Water Spirit, there's no such thing as a peaceful life in this world. It's just that someone is carrying the burden for us. So don't disappoint his expectations. You have to live well. This is the best way to miss him. She had never seen Shui Ling truly happy before. Only a faint trace of sadness could be seen on her face. The longing was so soft, so bitter. If she lived like this for the rest of her life, then she would never be happy, much less happy. Ever since she heard the story of Ci Shui Slope, she had always loved Water Spirit dearly. Unfortunately, she couldn't persuade her and could only watch her live like this day after day. Little Princess Consort. This time it was Water Spirit's turn to choke. Fengling is watching you from the sky. You have to smile for him. or else he will be heartbroken. Chu Qingyan patted her back and said softly. And water spirit nodded slightly, but tears flowed out of her eyes. I will try to smile for you. Brother Fengling, seeing water spirit's thin body slowly disappear into the rain, Chu Qingyan sniffed deeply and blinked away the tears in her eyes. The reason why he had so many emotions today was because he saw Zijing lying there weakly. It was as if she would disappear in the next breath. If it weren't for the love of her heart, she wouldn't have taken such a big risk. She even gave up her freedom and went to find Xiao alone, just for his safety. Sometimes, falling in love with someone was like this. They had been deceiving themselves, saying that it was okay, that they didn't like it and would forget it. But in fact, deep in their hearts, they had already built a city for this person that no one could enter. Some people were alive, but they were dead in their hearts. They died in that city. Some people were dead, but they were alive in their hearts. They were alive in that city. The former was because there was no greater sorrow than the death of the heart. If you don't have the heart, I won't bother you. The latter was because they couldn't walk out of that empty city. They didn't believe that they were dead. And water spirit was the latter. She hoped that everyone could be safe and happy, that lovers could be together, and that they wouldn't have to experience life and death. She also hoped that such a kind girl would be able to redeem herself and stop being trapped. Her hands grasped the edge of the table. She gripped it so hard that her fingertips slowly turned white. After coming to this time and space, she had experienced so many life and death situations. Sadly, she found that people were so humble and small in the hands of fate. Fate had the power to control the clouds and rain. It could easily play with people in the palm of its hand. If one wanted to fight against fate and against the heavens, they would have to pay a great price. As for herself, she was not willing to sacrifice anything. Everyone was a part of her life that she could not lose. She suddenly felt boundless sorrow. The only thing she could do now was to rely on her own strength to do her best to protect them. She let go of her hands and tidied up her clothes. The sorrow on her face slowly faded away. If it was necessary, she didn't mind putting on a battle suit and fighting for the people she cared about. As she walked back to the courtyard, Xining was looking for her. Her eyes lit up when she saw her. Master, Miss Yanlua wants to see you. Chu Qingyan's heart trembled. Worry and fear welled up in her heart. She didn't know what the outcome would be, but she still had to face it. She gathered her thoughts and quickened her pace. I'll go right away. Chapter 13:10. Because that's the bottom line that I can't cross. Xiao Su's words not only shocked the Sichuan emperor, but also surprised him. He didn't expect that over the past 10 years, no matter what methods he used to probe and force him, he would never resist him so strongly. Now he was even willing to give up his status for Chu Qingyan. At this moment, the Sichuan emperor felt that he needed to re-evaluate Chu Qingyan. He originally thought that she was just a beautiful and clever girl, but he didn't expect that she could make Xiao Su go to such lengths. That's right, a girl that could catch the eyes of both of his sons, no matter how ordinary she was, couldn't be ordinary. However, when the Sichuan emperor came to his senses, he felt as if he was inferior in front of his son. His authority had been challenged, and a wave of anger rose from his dantian. Xiao Su, you're impudent. He was so angry that his chest heaved up and down. How dare you speak to me like that? Imperial father, if this son had always been so obedient to your wishes, would you have given up on the thoughts of the people or objects around this son? Xiao Su looked directly at the emperor in front of him as he slowly said this. This was a question that had been buried in his heart for countless years. He had always wanted to ask his father face to face, but after saying it, he laughed lowly and said in a mocking tone, "No, if I did, I wouldn't still be asking you for an answer. But in fact you already have an answer, don't you? Imperial father, you didn't restrain yourself because of this, did you?" When he said the last sentence, Xiao Su raised his head and revealed a mocking expression. His son, who had always shown a cold face to others, not only showed his angry side in front of him, but also revealed such a disappointed heart. This was completely unexpected for the Sichuan emperor. "Su'er, he misspoke and didn't know what to say for a moment, because he couldn't refute Xiao Su's words. At this time, Xiao Su lifted the hem of his clothes and knelt down. His knees hit the ground with a frightening sound. But he didn't care at all. He looked up at the Sichuan emperor and spoke seriously and firmly. Father, I beg you, as long as you don't touch Ian this time, I am willing to give up my current status. No matter who you hand over the empire to in the future, I will not interfere. I only ask for peace with the person I love. Please grant my wish. He didn't ask for anything else. Imperial power, riches, and honor were nothing more than the smell of wine and meat. He never cared about them. If they wanted it, they could take it away at any time. He wouldn't have any complaints. However, if it was someone who hurt him, even if it was the heavens, he would stab it to the bottom. The Sichuan emperor stood up in shock. He looked at the pair of black eyes and felt incomparably shocked. Although he had weakened his power so many times in the dark, this was the first time he had done so openly. Although the two of them were still holding back, he believed that as long as they continued to talk, the two of them wouldn't be far from being frank. When that time came, they would really have a falling out and there would be no turning back. At this time, the Sichuan emperor couldn't help but think that the southern heavenly envoy was still in the country. If they fell out like this, when the time came, they would send their army south again. At that time, no one would be able to stop their brave and skilled grassland warriors. He was afraid. Father, let's not talk about this matter for now. Get up. The Sichuan emperor gave in. Now wasn't the time. He couldn't be too ruthless. Xiao Su still wanted to say something, but the Sichuan emperor waved his hand and dismissed him. I have a headache right now. You can go back. Xiao Su saw that he didn't want to talk about it, so he got up without hesitation. After leaving the imperial study, he turned to look at the splendid plaque and clenched his fingers tightly. When he knelt just now, he had already made a decision. No matter what, he would take the little fellow back to Lian City tomorrow. After Xiao Su left, the Sichuan emperor sat on the dragon throne and recalled the words he had just said. His expression was very ugly. Your Majesty, Consort Yu has already sent people to the King of England's residence an hour ago. At this time, Eunuch Xiao came in to report. When His Highness came in, the Emperor had everyone leave, including Eunuch Xiao. No one knew what the Emperor said to His Highness. They only saw that after His Highness left, his face was terrifyingly cold. No one dared to come within 10 steps of him. They also didn't dare to go up and greet him. They just watched him disappear from sight. However, His Highness's body was even colder than when he left a few years ago, but his back was even straighter. Thinking about it, this was another conversation that ended on bad terms. Why did Consort Yu send people to the King of England's residence? The Sichuan emperor was still immersed in the matter just now and asked casually. It seems that the fourth prince is unconscious, so Consort Yu sent people to bring Miss Chu into the palace. After Eunuch Xiao finished speaking, he immediately lowered his eyes. His brother-in-law's condition would only improve after seeing his future sister-in-law. If this spread out, His Royal Highness's face would not look good. The Sichuan emperor immediately understood the twists and turns in the story. His face darkened. He had just promised Xiao Su that he wouldn't touch Chu Qingyan for the time being. At this time, Consort Yu did this to him. If Xiao Su couldn't find her, and thought that he was going back on his word, wouldn't that annoy him? Summon Consort Yu for me. The Sichuan emperor held his forehead, feeling a headache coming on. At this time a voice sounded. Your Majesty, there's no need to summon me. This concubine is already here. At this time, Chu Qingyan had already arrived at the courtyard. Her hands were on the doorknob, but she hesitated and didn't dare to open it. Little girl, you're here? Come in. Cheng Yanluo's tired voice came through the crack in the door. Chu Qingyan didn't hesitate and opened the door. The smell of blood in the room was slowly dispersed by the wind. How is it? She quickly walked over. At this time, Cheng Yanluo and Ethereal looked at each other. In the end, Ethereal said, Young Princess Consort, you have to be mentally prepared. The patient's condition is very bad. Chu Qingyan forced herself to calm down. She nodded. I know. Now tell me the results of the diagnosis. Cheng Yanluo put down the silver needles in her hand and walked up to her. Like I said before, the wound on her chest isn't life-threatening. I've checked her limbs, and they're basically broken. However, they can be reattached. Compared to other injuries, this isn't a problem. The only problem is that she fell from a high place and hit a hard object. Then she fell hard on the ground, causing her internal organs to suffer severe internal injuries. This is going to be very tricky. This is very serious. Chu Qingyan trembled with fear. Finally, she couldn't help but grab Qingyanluo's hand and ask anxiously, "What do you mean by very serious? Can it be cured?" "Young Princess Consort, even if we cure her internal injuries, I'm afraid she won't live for more than half a month," Ethereal whispered from the side. Chapter 13:11. Why? What do you mean by curing her internal injuries? She won't live for more than half a month? Chu Qingyan's body swayed. She felt that she couldn't understand her words either. Seeing her like this, Qingyanluo didn't feel good either. She asked, "Is this the friend you said you wanted me to treat?" Chu Qingyan nodded immediately. "Is there a problem?" Yanluo wasn't the kind of person who would speak nonsense at critical moments. She must have her reasons. Only to hear her good friend sigh softly before looking at her. This young lady has been inflicted with a slow-acting poison called the life-severing poison. Today, she was severely injured and her internal organs were damaged, causing the poison in her body to spread uncontrollably. Within half a month, the poison will definitely act up and she will die if she is not treated. This is why Morong said that she could only be saved for a short while. Ethereal continued. Moreover, once the life-severing poison acts up, it will be extremely torturous. She won't be able to live nor die. We just discussed that instead of letting her suffer the pain of her internal injuries, the torture before the poison acts up, and the pain when the poison acts up, why don't we end her now? Because when the time comes, even the young princess consort won't be able to bear to see her in such agony. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but take a step back. When it rains, it pours. This was exactly what they meant. God just loved to set up a series of traps for them. Just when you thought you had successfully escaped, you were actually stepping into a new vortex. God would never stop telling you that what was in front of you was not a path, but a challenge. You would have to experience even more pain. She turned around and slowly walked towards the dying person lying on the bed. Although her entire body had been cleaned and her face was pure, she was like a fragile doll, fragile yet lovable. Fate was so unfair. Good people didn't have peace, but scourges lived for 1,000 years. She reached out to hold Pang Zhijing's hand, and slowly closed her eyes. Her eyes were moist. Back then, this girl had told her that she wanted freedom. She wanted to breathe fresh air under the blue sky. She had asked her to help her leave this place. But now she was lying here, as if she had lost her soul. She was quiet and in pain. No, they shouldn't bow down to fate, not fight back, and passively accept such a cruel ending. Chu Qingyan immediately turned around and grabbed Qingyanluo's hand. She pleaded, "Yanluo, is there any other way? Please, you have to save her. She's still so young and hasn't enjoyed her freedom. She hasn't confessed her feelings to the person she loves. How can she surrender to fate? How can you just accept your fate like this?" Qingyanluo held her hand and pursed her lips. Finally, she made up her mind and said, "Little girl, don't be sad. We do have a plan, but we can't guarantee that it'll work. Or rather, we don't even have a 10% chance of success. Can't even guarantee 10%? However, Chu Qingyan seemed to be grasping at the last straw. She asked anxiously, "What is it?" "Morong and I can't detoxify this poison, but we want to ask my father for help. He knows a lot about poisons in the world. Maybe he knows how to detoxify this poison. But the problem is, it's at least half a month's journey from here to my father's place. I'm afraid that we won't be able to make it in time. Or even if we do, my father won't be able to do anything about it." Qingyanluo couldn't help but look at the person beside her. Chu Qingyan was silent. This was what Yanluo meant. They didn't even have a 10% chance of success. This was like a gamble. If they won, it would be good. But if they lost, there was no turning back. She couldn't help but hold Pang Zhijing's hand again. Her voice was dry and hoarse as she said with difficulty, "Zhijing, if you can't bear the pain, we'll give you a quick death. We won't let you suffer anymore. If you want to live, we'll go with the second plan. What do you think?" The person on the bed didn't give any response, but Chu Qingyan made the final decision. Ethereal Yin Luo, will do as you said. Find divine Dr. Luo and save Zhijing, she said resolutely. Ethereal and Yin Luo weren't surprised by her decision. They immediately nodded in agreement. Time was of the essence. They couldn't care less about anything else. They immediately returned to their rooms to prepare the things they needed to leave. Xining also went downstairs to instruct the butler to prepare the horses, dry rations, and other things. At this moment, the room became silent. Chu Qingyan held Zhijing's hand tightly. She knew that Zhijing wanted to live. Just now, Zhijing had struggled in her hand, as if she was struggling to take a step into the gates of hell. Please, I want to live. I want to see Xiao Ho find happiness with my own eyes. I haven't done anything yet. I can't just die like this. Chu Qingyan rested her forehead against Pang Zhijing's. She said in a soft and firm voice, "Don't worry. We'll bring you back safely." Her voice was so gentle that it could drip water. But she closed her eyes. Tears welled up in the corners of her eyes. At this moment, Consort Yu had already walked into the imperial study. She calmly faced Sichuan Emperor's gaze and bowed to him. Then she said, "Your Majesty, I know you want to ask me about the matter of secretly going to the King of England's residence to take Chu Qingyan away. Ranner is unconscious. This concubine is truly afraid that he will continue to sleep like this. Your Majesty, this concubine knows that you have many children, but this concubine only has one son. If something were to happen to him, this concubine is afraid that this concubine will not be able to continue living alone. That is why this concubine wants to fulfill his wish. Didn't you say that after today, Miss Chu will no longer be His Highness Prince Ying's fiancée?" Sichuan Emperor looked at her coldly. "Didn't we tell you that we'll take care of Ranner's matter? Why do you have to get involved?" Consort Yu took a deep breath. Her eyes glistened with tears. "Your Majesty, please forgive me. As a mother, I can't do anything about it." Sichuan Emperor couldn't bear to scold her when he saw her like this. But because of this, things had become very troublesome. "We've already promised Su, or that we won't touch Chu Qingyan for the time being. You've put us in a difficult situation. If he resists when the time comes, and the Southern Heavenly Envoy group is still here, it'll be very disadvantageous for us." After experiencing today's events, he realized that Xiao Su wasn't as cold as he seemed on the surface. Moreover, he already had a premonition that if he touched Xiao Su's reverse scale this time, he was afraid that Xiao Su wouldn't let things go like before. What's wrong with that? Just say that Chu Qingyan will stay in the palace for a few days. After 2 days, we'll send her back. At that time, the marriage will be over and the Southern Heavenly Envoy group will have left. At that time, we won't have anything to worry about. Consort Yu's words made Sichuan Emperor come to a realization. Originally, he wanted to force him into a corner and see if he would retaliate. At that time, he would be able to take him down in one fell swoop and resolve this crisis. "Xiao Su, let us see how capable you are." However, in this world, plans can't keep up with changes. Sichuan Emperor and Consort Yu probably didn't expect that this marriage would never be completed. Chapter 13-12. Cheng Yanluo finished packing and walked out. She bumped into Ethereal. Her gaze landed on the bundle he was carrying and she asked in surprise, "You're going too? Is there a problem?" Ethereal walked up to her with the bundle in his hand and asked in confusion. "I can handle this alone. You should stay in the prince's residence," Cheng Yanluo said with a smile. Ethereal immediately shook his head and rejected the suggestion. "No, I can't let you go back alone. Master's residence is treacherous. I won't be at ease if you go back alone. You're too silly." Cheng Yanluo couldn't help but laugh and shake her head. "The little girl will definitely assign enough guards to protect me. The fierce cavalry and her howling cavalry are all experts. Your martial arts might not be as good as theirs. I think it's more reliable for them to protect me than for you to protect me. Why do I feel like I'm being despised?" Ethereal couldn't help but complain to her. Seriously, ever since he recovered from his injuries, he would change his method whenever he couldn't win an argument. He would always act like a docile wife, making her unable to do anything to him. "I'm not despising you. I just think that it's better for you to stay here. I can handle this alone. Cheng Yanluo flashed him a confident smile and comforted him. Ethereal's eyes instantly revealed a puzzled expression. He couldn't help but size her up. Xiaoyan, why are you? She knew what he wanted to say when she saw his expression. She took a step forward and reached out to hold his hand. Her face was bright and beautiful as she looked up at him with a gentle gaze. Are you curious why I've changed my mind? I'm no longer like many years ago, when I wanted to tie you to my side and never leave your side. Ethereal was speechless. How could he admit it? Cheng Yanluo couldn't help but chuckle when she saw his awkward expression. Murong, people change. After so many years, we've been through so much together. Wouldn't it be a waste if I didn't gain anything? Ethereal was slightly taken aback. Xiaoyan, Cheng Yanluo interrupted him. Don't say anything. Let me finish. Before I met you again, I admit that I couldn't understand you. What does the responsibility on your shoulders and the brothers in your heart have to do with me? Why did you risk your life to complete and protect them? You even left me alone in the sect for them. Xiaoyan, I'm sorry. Ethereal couldn't help but apologize. Cheng Yanluo flashed a smile at him. But after getting to know the little girl, the fire spirit, Turin, and the others, we went through life and death together. Only then did I understand what responsibility is, what it means to do everything in my power to protect the peace and tranquility. I also understand your dilemma, your fear and your feelings. I feel that I'm very selfish. I only have feelings for love in my eyes, and I'm too greedy. I only think of myself, and I'm insensible enough to force you to choose between me and them. I've always thought that when two people are in love, they should have no distractions and shouldn't have any other ties. Actually, I was wrong. When you love someone, you should be his strong support and let him do what he wants without any distractions, instead of being his tie. It's because of this that you and I missed so many years. If I had thought it through earlier, perhaps we could have had more beautiful memories instead of regretting each other's absence. At this point, she hid the remorse in her eyes and looked at Ethereal's slightly trembling eyes. She smiled and said, Murong, I've learned a lot from you. I won't interfere with the righteousness in your heart anymore. I won't be so selfish as to tie you to me. I'll be your strongest support, so you can rest assured and carry out your mission. I only want you to be safe. When she finished her last sentence, Kongling reached out and pulled her into his arms. Xiaoyan, do you know? I've never been so happy before. Thank you. Thank you for your understanding. In this life, I, Murongju, am so lucky to be able to go to the end of our lives hand in hand with you. He hugged her tightly and his heart felt as if it was surrounded by a warm current. For a moment, he was so moved that he couldn't say anything. Fool. Cheng Yanluo scolded him, but her throat was so hoarse that she couldn't say another word. Let time stop at this moment and embrace eternity without separation. Originally, she didn't intend to say these words to him, but a lifetime was so long. She couldn't let him live in guilt and self-blame all the time, could she? That was why she told him the truth when she left this time. She didn't want him to be in a dilemma between her and his responsibilities, unable to advance or retreat. The little girl was right. If you truly loved someone, it wasn't to restrain them, but to let them spread their wings and soar with peace of mind. Murong, I don't want to be a tie that binds you. I want to be a companion by your side. Two figures stood in the hallway. Chu Qingyan looked indifferently at the scene of rain flowing down from the eaves. Suddenly she spoke. Jasper, why do you think there's been endless rain these days? Perhaps it's because the clouds bear too much resentment, so there's endless tears. Hearing this, she turned to look at Jasper. When she spoke, she smiled and said, When did our black-bellied and aloof Jasper become so artistic? This isn't like you. This servant is speaking on behalf of Master. Your sorrowful mood today is too heavy. Jasper replied without thinking. Today Master had experienced great joy, great pain and great sorrow. Just now, when she stood under the eaves, her entire person seemed to be one with heaven and earth. She couldn't help but feel a little distressed. She wondered if His Highness would feel even more distressed if he saw Master like this. Is that so? Life is always smooth sailing. There are often small storms, but it's normal to have big storms occasionally, she replied softly. Her gaze fell on the dark clouds that showed no signs of dissipating. She muttered in her heart, "Why isn't the big ice block back yet?" She wanted to throw herself into his arms and vent all the sadness and sadness of today. "Master, Miss Yanluo and Lord Ethereal are here," Jasper reminded her. Chu Qingyan turned around and saw the two beauties walking over hand in hand. She couldn't help but smile. "Little girl, I have to set off tonight. I found a shortcut on the map just now. This way we can shorten the journey time. Even if it's only a day, it's still precious." Chung Yanluo went straight to the point. She couldn't help but worry. Won't the journey be bumpy? Won't it be bad for her injuries? Most shortcuts were mountain roads with strange rocks. It was precisely because it was close that it was difficult to travel. For someone like her who has one foot in the gates of hell, it can't be too bad. Chung Yanluo sighed. Chu Qingyan felt a slight pain in her eyes. "All right, then I'll leave her in your care. Please be sure to save her." "I'll do my best," Chung Yanluo replied with a straight face. "Okay, wait a minute. She has someone she loves deeply. Should I tell him about this?" Chapter 13:13. Should she tell Xiao? Perhaps he still didn't know that Jijing was with them. Although Xiao was Big Ice Cube's sworn enemy, she couldn't bear to see Jijing's eyes light up every time she talked about him. There was no rational reason for liking someone. Regardless of whether the person was good or evil, righteous or evil, they were all beyond one's control. Xiao was hateful, but he was still someone that Jijing loved with all her might. Putting aside their personal grudges, as her friend, they couldn't decide this matter for her. Chung Yanluo looked at the pretty girl who was being carried to the carriage, and sighed heavily. Then she turned to her friend and said, "In my opinion, we shouldn't tell him about this. Whether or not he can be saved is still a question. We shouldn't let him experience despair again after being disappointed." At this time, Huling came over and heard everyone's discussion. He said worriedly, "I agree with Miss Cheng's words. We originally wanted to send the princess away. If it were anyone else, it would be fine. I'm afraid that Prince Yi will use this matter to make things difficult for Master. Moreover, the fight on the Phoenix Terrace will soon alert His Majesty. If he knows that we saved the princess, I'm afraid we can't be cleared of suspicion. After all, Prince Yi and those people saw the princess appear on the Phoenix Terrace." Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and pondered. What Yanluo and Hualing said was reasonable. This was no longer a simple matter between Jijing and Xiao. It involved the internal strife of the imperial court and the dispute between the two countries. Therefore, this matter couldn't be related to the King of England's residence. "Okay, let's do it. Leave at night. Xiaoqi will open a path for you and protect you." Chu Qingyan made a prompt decision. She called out Shuji and the others and gave them the task. After everything was settled, she turned around and grabbed her friend's hand. She said apologetically, "Yanluo, I'm really sorry. You've just returned and I already have a favor to ask of you. It wasn't easy for the two of you to be together, but now you're separated. Don't be silly. Isn't that what friends are like? Wait for me to come back. Little girl, take care." Chung Yanluo reached out and hugged her. Then she turned and left resolutely, afraid that she would be reluctant to leave. Ethereal followed her and saw her to the door. Looking at the two of them leaving together, Chu Qingyan felt both guilty and touched. Fortunately, she had so many good friends by her side. When they encountered difficulties and thorns, they could hold hands and overcome them together. "Little Princess Consort, please don't be sad. There are still things waiting for you to deal with." Hualing stood on the side and comforted her. Only then did Chu Qingyan remember that there was still a big mess waiting for her to clean up. The emotions on her face were instantly wiped clean. "Do you know where Xiao is now? I heard that he was taken away by Li Weiyuan. At that time, he was already heavily injured and unconscious," Hualing reported honestly. Hearing this, she pondered for a moment and said, "The substitute that we prepared before is still in use. Do you know how to deal with it?" This subordinate understands. Hualing understood. "Good. Do your best to conceal it. Don't let anyone find out, especially Xiao." Chu Qingyan's tone was cold and solemn. At that time, it was that girl Jijing who had decided to leave. Now that she was heavily injured and unconscious, she couldn't make any decisions for her. Everything would be carried out according to the original plan. If Zijing could escape this disaster, then it would be up to her to decide whether or not to tell Xiao. Now, as she wished, she would first help her break free from the shackles of the southern Song princess. Now pay close attention to Xiao and Li Weiyuan's movements. Cooperate with Water Spirit to investigate the fake Xiaolai cavalry and the assassin who tried to assassinate Zijing. Chu Qingyan gave a series of orders. Hualing nodded and noted them down. Just as she finished giving orders, she heard a familiar voice. Qingyan, Iron Rooster and I are here to see you. The voice arrived before the person arrived. Chu Qingyan turned and saw Xiao making a fuss. She couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Didn't you just leave at noon? Why are you here again? When Xiao heard this, she immediately pursed her lips and looked at the person behind her. Iron Rooster, they don't welcome us. My heart hurts. Let's go back. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she and Lin Fingyi looked at each other and smiled. This clown really didn't know what to do with her. Lin Fingyi patted her head and said, Don't throw a tantrum. I'll cook with you when we get back. Xiao was so happy with just one sentence. She even showed off to her good friend. Look, my Iron Rooster is so considerate. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but shake her head and laugh. Hey, don't burn the bridge after crossing the river. Think about who was the one crying and looking for me this morning? Do you want me to reveal to Sir Lin what you said? Qingyan you. Xiao stomped her feet in anger. She had almost forgotten that her good friend was a fox in rabbit's skin. She was very cunning, and she actually dared to provoke her. She was simply too masochistic. Is there something I don't know? Lin Fingyi looked curiously at the two. At this time, Xiao immediately winked at her good friend, telling her not to reveal what she had said this morning. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to go back today. When Chu Qingyan received her request, she snorted. When she saw her begging with her eyes, she finally cleared her throat and said, It's nothing. Just a girl's private conversation. Lin Fingyi laughed and shook his head. It had to be about him. But now wasn't the time to discuss this. He first comforted the little rabbit beside him, and then turned to face Chu Qingyan. His expression was serious as he said, I came this time to find you. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan stilled. Does Sir Lin have something to say? Lin Fingyi nodded. Can we talk in private? Even though she didn't understand, she still nodded and extended her hand in invitation. Sir, please come with me to the study. All right. But at this time, the steward quickly walked over in the rain. Wang Fei, someone from the palace has come and wants to see you. Chu Qingyan stopped in her tracks, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. The big ice cube had just been summoned to the palace by Sichuan Emperor a few hours ago, and had not yet returned. Now, someone from the palace had come to summon her. What was going on? After the big ice cube left, her heart had been in a state of unease. Now it was even stronger. Her expression was calm as usual. She turned to look at the steward. Do you know who sent her? She was sent by Consort Yunyang. She's called Jiang Mama, the steward replied. It was Consort Yu? Speaking of which, she didn't have any interactions with this consort of Sichuan Emperor. Why did she choose to invite her to the palace at this time? She turned to look at Lin Fingyi, who had a serious expression on his face. She rolled her eyes and thought for a moment. Then, she made a prompt decision and said to the butler, Tell her that I'll be there in a change of clothes. Serve her well and don't neglect the important guest. After the steward left, Chu Qingyan immediately said to Lin Fingyi, Sir Lin, let's go to the study first. Lin Fingyi nodded and the two immediately headed to the study. It seemed that the atmosphere wasn't right. At the side, Xiao didn't dare to be presumptuous and quietly followed. Chapter 13-14. Once they entered the study, Chu Qingyan had Hualing close the door and check to see if anyone was eavesdropping. After everything was safe, Chu Qingyan looked at Lin Fingyi. Lin Darren, it is very safe here. What do you want to say to Qingyan? You can say it now without worry. At the beginning, when he said he had something to talk to her about, her expression was very normal as if she didn't feel anything. However, after the people from the palace came, he found that the emotions in her eyes kept changing. Without thinking, she arranged for Jiang Mama's people to rest, and then used the excuse of changing clothes to invite him to the study. It was clear that she had already guessed the purpose of his visit to the Wang Fu. After analyzing Chu Qingyan, Lin Fengyi couldn't help but feel a trace of admiration for her. This girl was so young, but her thoughts were so meticulous. Just from the changes in his expression, she guessed his purpose. He couldn't help but have a whole new level of respect for her. No wonder she was the person chosen by Xiao Su. She had the qualifications and the courage. Good. Lin Fengyi nodded and didn't keep her in suspense. He said directly, "The reason I came to find you is because I received news that Xiao Su was summoned into the palace by Xiao Su today. Even though I don't know what His Majesty's intentions are, I thought of the matter of General Li Weiyuan entering the capital today, and felt that it was a bit strange. If His Majesty plans to let you return to your fief, he would definitely summon Xiao Su into the palace to discuss the handover after General Li meets with His Majesty. Therefore, the timing is a bit unclear." "You are right." Chu Qingyan nodded and felt that Lin Fengyi's words made sense. At this time, she finally found the reason for her unease. Happiness came too suddenly and made her dizzy. So the timing wasn't right. Even though she didn't react at the time, the big ice cube was smart and must have sensed something. She didn't know what kind of mood he was in when he left the Wang Fu today. "I came to the Wang Fu because I wanted to wait for his safe return. If Xiao Su had returned now, then everything would be fine. However, there is still no sign of him. I am truly worried." When he said this, Lin Fengyi looked at Chu Qingyan with a slightly worried gaze. "However, I did not think that imperial concubine you would also send someone to find you. This is truly inconceivable. I am also very puzzled. I don't know if I am too sensitive, but I feel uneasy." She was silent for a while before looking at Lin Fengyi. "If I have to give a reason, it could be because of Xiao Ran. I haven't seen him in a while. How about you refuse to enter the palace this time, and find a reason to say that you are not feeling well, and wait for Xiao Su to return before making any plans?" Lin Fengyi also felt that the other's intentions were unclear. To be safe, it was better to wait for Xiao Su to return. At this time, Jasper knocked on the door and came in. Her expression was not good. "Master, this subordinate went out to investigate just now and found that this Jiang Mama brought many guards with her. They are stationed outside the door, and do not come with good intentions." Chu Qingyan frowned deeply and then shook her head at Lin Fengyi, saying, "Darren's suggestion may not work. If they do not have any ulterior motives, then it would be fine. But looking at the situation, they suddenly summon me when His Highness is not here. Also, if I resist, they will use force as a backup. This time, it must be done. Therefore, if I refuse, I am afraid that they will not leave the matter at that." Lin Fengyi also frowned. "I keep feeling that this trip bodes ill rather than well. Have you made your preparations?" When Chu Qingyan heard this, she suddenly smiled. "Even if there is a mountain of swords and a sea of fire in front of me, I will still charge forward. Moreover, I have His Highness as my backing. There is nothing to be afraid of." Lin Fengyi was slightly stunned, but then he heard her suddenly say to him seriously, "Darren Lin, if His Highness returns and finds out that I am not here, please advise him not to be impulsive. Perhaps things are not as bad as we think, but if something really happens, please comfort him. I am not a fledgling and can protect myself. However, it is already difficult for us to move forward in the capital. Every move we make is under the watchful eyes of those with ulterior motives. I do not want anything to happen to him, so if I am not here, please help me take good care of him." "Miss Chu, do not worry. Even if you did not ask, I would have done so." Lin Fengyi collected himself and agreed. "Thank you, Darren Lin. Then I can go without worry." Chu Qingyan gave him a deep bow, then turned around and stepped onto the road without hesitation. Lin Fengyi stood by the door and looked at her back in the curtain of rain. The rain was majestic and the thunder rumbled, as if it could destroy anything in the world. However, in this world, only she calmly walked under the paper umbrella. Her clothes fluttered like burning fireworks, overflowing with the mortal world. No matter how heavy the rain outside was, it seemed to have nothing to do with her. She focused on moving forward without turning back. A strange emotion surfaced in his eyes. Xiao Su, all the misfortune and suffering you have experienced in this life have been exchanged for a woman you love the most. It can be considered worth it. Miser, why do I feel that Qingyan will not be able to return this time? Xiao, who was standing in the study and listening quietly, tugged on Lin Fengyi's sleeve and asked in a somewhat sorrowful voice. I also do not know. The affairs of the world are unpredictable. We cannot stop these things from happening, but we still have the best hope. I hope that Xiao Su and Miss Chu can turn misfortune into fortune, achieve positive results, and no longer have to face any more calamities. Lin Fengyi reached out and patted the back of her hand, then pulled her into his arms to comfort her. Compared to Your Highness Qingyan, I find that we are already sufficiently fortunate and happy. In the future, I will not be angry at you anymore. If I am angry at you, I will first count to 3 before deciding whether or not to be angry. She buried her head in his clothes, her voice sorrowful. Okay, I will definitely not be angry at you. He tightened his arms and looked at the stone path that was already empty. He sighed softly in his heart. Xiao Su, quickly come back. At the same time, Xiao Su had already walked out of the imperial palace. The carriage of the Wang Fu appeared in front of him. He raised his head to look at Turin sitting on the carriage and jumped onto it. Turin felt a clear icy presence on his master's body. He thought that his master must have had some displeasure with his majesty in the palace, because he had not seen his master like this for more than 5 years. This king was not here today. Is everything in the Wang Fu well? Xiao Su closed his eyes and asked in a deep voice. Everything in the Wang Fu is well, but a few major events have occurred. Hearing this, Xiao Su frowned and opened his eyes. Turin thought of the young Wang Fei's orders, and did not dare to conceal anything. He reported everything that had happened on Fengtai Mountain, including Pang Zhijing's injury. Because Turin had left early, he did not know how Pang Zhijing's injury was. Xiao Su's first concern was not the impersonation of Xiaolai cavalry, but Pang Zhijing's injury. He knew how much his little fellow valued this friend. Now that something like this had happened, she must not be feeling well. He wanted to immediately appear by her side to comfort her. Xiao Su's expression instantly became even colder. Have the carriage driver speed up. This king wants to return to the Fu immediately. Yes. Chapter 13-15. Chu Qingyan stepped into the drawing room and saw Jiang Mama sitting inside. Her posture was arrogant and condescending. She put on a gentle smile and said to Jiang Mama, I've made Mama wait for a long time. Jiang Mama was an old person who had been in the palace for many years. When she saw Chu Qingyan leisurely walk over in a simple scarlet robe, she was still stunned. In terms of beauty, she was even more beautiful than Her Highness Consort Yu in her prime. In terms of temperament, she was even more dignified and elegant than Empress Liang. It was no wonder that the arrogant fourth prince was so infatuated with her. She indeed had the qualifications to be so. When she thought of the purpose of this trip, Jiang Mama put away the arrogant expression on her face and turned into a kind old woman. Not long, not long. This old one can understand that Miss needs time to dress up before going out. However, Miss isn't wearing any jewelry. Isn't it too plain? Chu Qingyan smiled indifferently. Qingyan is already used to dressing like this. Mama, please forgive me. Miss is too polite. Then let's go. Jiang Mama bent slightly and enthusiastically reached out to help her. However, Chu Qingyan tactfully declined. Many thanks, Mama. Qingyan should walk on her own. Good. Jiang Mama withdrew her hand and didn't feel embarrassed at all. She was still smiling. However, when she saw Jasper and Xining following behind Chu Qingyan, Jiang Mama's tone turned serious. Miss, my highness has already prepared palace maids to serve you. There's no need for you to bring them from the prince's estate. There are so many nobles in the palace. If you don't understand the rules and offend them, then Miss will be put in a difficult position. These words were too dignified. Jasper and Xining's faces immediately darkened. However, Chu Qingyan still smiled gently. Then I'll listen to Mama. As she spoke, she turned around and said to the 2 unwilling servant girls with a gaze as calm as water, You 2 obediently stay in the manor, and help me take good care of father and mother. When I return, don't cause any trouble." The last sentence was said with more force. When the two heard it, they lowered their heads. This servant understands. After giving her instructions, she walked out of the prince's mansion with Nanny Jiang. Seeing the magnificent carriage outside the fu, as well as the guards holding weapons on both sides, she silently cursed in her heart. It seemed that this time, they were fully prepared to take her into the palace. She really didn't know what was waiting for her there. But thinking about it, it's quite exciting. Since I can't avoid it, then I'll go with you. After getting into the carriage, Chu Qingyan sat on the couch. There were 2 servant girls on each side of her. It looked like they were serving her, but they were actually monitoring her. She could feel that their breathing was long, which was a characteristic of martial artists. She rested her chin on her hand and chuckled softly. So he was afraid that she would run away midway. He really thought too much. When the carriage started to move, she stretched out her hand to lift the curtain. Her gaze pierced through the rain to look at the majestic manor door. Her heart suddenly felt empty, as if something was slowly draining away. Why did she feel that she might not be able to come back? She lowered her eyes and finally slowly let go. Here were the family she protected and the friends she loved. She definitely wouldn't let anyone hurt them. No matter what this trip was, she must come back. This was her and Big Ice Cube's home. How could she not return home? Dark clouds covered the sky and strong winds blew. Every household had their doors and windows tightly shut, afraid that they would be affected by this storm. No one noticed that the imperial procession stopped at the entrance of the prince's mansion, and no one noticed when it left. Everything happened in the darkness without a sound. The horse's hooves stepped on the puddles and splashed the water as it galloped on the ground. The carriage sped on the empty road. Xiao Su's expression was heavy and cold. His fingers were on the table, and no one knew what he was thinking. Turin stood guard at the side and didn't dare to disturb him. At this time, a pair of guards of honor came from the front. Because the road was wide and there were no pedestrians, the 2 sides each took one side and passed by each other through the curtain of rain. Xiao Su's eyes casually glanced at the carriage window. He only saw the shops that were quickly passing by and all kinds of things that were blown to the side. He couldn't help but withdraw his gaze, and a sense of loss suddenly surged in his heart. But he remembered that the little fellow was still waiting for him in the prince's mansion, so he immediately urged the carriage driver to move faster. Chu Qingyan, who was sitting in the carriage, seemed to have sensed something and lifted the curtain. But she only saw the falling rain and the dancing wine flags in the air. Then, she didn't know what she was sighing in her heart, but she slowly lowered the curtain as if she had lost something. Looking down from the sky, the 2 sides were like 2 sharp arrows. After brushing past each other, they quickly went in opposite directions, and then slowly moved away until they disappeared at the end of the street. The furthest distance in the world was perhaps, I'm on one side and you're on the other, and then they would unknowingly go in opposite directions. Half a stick of incense later, Xiao Su returned to the prince's mansion. He strode through the gate and headed directly for Chu Qingyan's courtyard. When he arrived at the courtyard, he saw Lin Fingyi waiting there. In the flower sleeve, ethereal, Hualing, as well as father and mother Chu. His gaze swept over them and he frowned. Where is Ian? Hualing was about to speak when Father Chu jumped out from the side. Kai was taken away by a bad woman. Quickly go and save Kai, father's poor daughter. Saying this, Father Chu began to cry. Mother Chu quickly comforted him from the side. Xiao Su's face turned cold when he heard this. He turned to look at Hualing. What is going on? Master, an hour ago, Consort, you sent someone to summon the young princess Consort into the palace. This subordinate doesn't know the reason either. Seeing that his master was angry, Hualing did not dare to delay and immediately replied concisely. Xiao Su could not help but recall what Imperial Father had said in the Imperial study. His eyes narrowed. Could this be a plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain? Their true goal was to take away the little fellow? A raging fire surged out of his chest. Xiao Su turned to leave. When Turin, Hualing and the others saw this, they immediately ran in front of him to block him. Hualing hastily asked, Master, you aren't thinking of barging into the palace, right? You absolutely cannot do this. Xiao Su's face was as dark as the dark clouds in the sky. His cold eyes swept over the subordinates blocking him, and his voice was as cold as ice. Move aside. Turin and Hualing were intimidated by the pressure coming from their master's body, but they still gritted their teeth to silently express their determination. Very good. Xiao Su's expression was tense. He raised his hand and waved it at the two, shaking them away in the blink of an eye. There was no obstruction in front of him. Xiao Su immediately lifted his foot to leave. At this time, a voice came from behind him. Xiao Su, Miss Chu said a few words before she left. Do you want to hear them? Xiao Su instantly stopped in his tracks. Lin Fingyi looked at his proud back and gave a soft sigh. He slowly said, She told me to tell you not to be impulsive when you return. Even if there is a mountain of blades and a sea of fire in front of you, she still has to charge in. Also, she has you as her backing, so there is nothing to be afraid of. So with your current impulsiveness, do you still want to enter the palace? Xiao Su was slightly stunned. Then he slowly lowered his eyes, hiding the emotions in his eyes. I just left for a while and didn't see you when I returned. So losing someone could be this fast. Without you, the Wang Fu is just a pile of broken walls. Chapter 13-16. Hualing and Turin fell to the ground and immediately crawled over. Their hands grabbed onto their master's feet, stopping him from moving forward. Master, please think twice before you act, don't be impulsive. The little princess is still waiting for you to bring her back. Turin looked up from the water with pleading eyes. Hualing also begged. Master, the little princess has been taken away. This subordinate is also very anxious, but please calm down. There is no benefit in breaking into the imperial palace. Xiao Su's hands clenched into fists as his veins popped out. The rain fell on his body, but it did not dampen the anger in his heart and the sadness that came from his heart. That was because they did not know that his conversation with his imperial father today was that his imperial father wanted to steal the little fellow from his side. He already could not control himself at this time. If he did not see the little fellow, he would not be able to feel at ease. Let go. Otherwise, don't blame this king for hurting you. When Xiao Su's words fell, the two of them hugged even tighter. His heart sank as he raised his foot to throw the two of them away. He walked out the door without looking back. He thought that his words would move his good friend, but he never thought that it would make him even more irritable. Lin Fingyi was a bit stunned as he looked at him. That person who was always indomitable and never showed any emotion would actually lose himself like this one day. He was like a wild beast on the verge of exploding, like he had never met him before. Looking at it now, Chu Qingyan was not here, so even he did not have the confidence to stop him. What are you all in a daze for? Go and stop him. Do you want to watch him cause a disaster? Lin Fingyi's words made the stunned fierce cavalry come back to their senses, and they all went forward to block the door. The rain became heavier and the wind howled in the yard. The wind mixed with the rain fell on everyone's bodies. Xiao Su looked up at the people in front of him and angrily reprimanded. Even you all want to disobey this king's orders now? Turin and Hualing crawled up from the ground with apologetic eyes, not daring to look up at him. Xiao Su didn't look at them again, and walked straight to the gate. Xiao Lai's cavalry did not dare to attack their master, and could only stand in front of him like a meat wall. Xiao Su was furious and attacked in anger. Xiao Lai's cavalry only defended and did not attack. Very quickly, a large number of them fell. However, they were like cockroaches that could not be killed. When someone fell, another would stand up. Very quickly, the black-clothed fierce cavalry were all stained with mud. They were battered and exhausted, but no one retreated a single step. In the last move, Xiao Su knocked everyone down. When he lifted his foot again, two figures suddenly appeared in front of him. After seeing them clearly, Xiao Su stopped. Su, stop fighting. It's not suitable for you to enter the palace like this. You'll lose your life before you can rescue Kai Kai. That's not what we want to see, and neither is it what Kai Kai wants to see. Chu Mu's mother supported Chu Mu's father. Although her expression was sad, her eyes were filled with worry and love as she looked at him. Chu Mu's father also jumped up at this time. He pointed at his son-in-law's nose and scolded. Cut the onion. Father asked you to think of a way to save Kai Kai, not to send you to your death. Why are you so stupid? Kai Kai is so smart, she'll be fine for a while. Go back and change your clothes. Think of a way for father. Don't hit white impermanence and black impermanence. Otherwise, they'll really go accompany King Yama and ignore you. But Xiao Su still wanted to refute but was interrupted by Chu Mu's father. There are no buts. We don't even know what they want to do now. How can we talk about saving people? On the battlefield, you can only win 100 battles if you know yourself and your enemy. You're like this, not only do we have to worry about Kai Kai, we also have to worry about you. When did you become so worrisome? Chu Mu's father said angrily as he dragged him under the eaves. Although he said so much in one breath, and all of it was scolding Xiao Su, everyone could hear the concern and disappointment in his words. Chu Mu's father was really reliable when he wasn't being silly. However, his coolness didn't last more than 3 seconds. Father, I don't want this irritable cut the onion. Hurry up and change that ice lolly son-in-law back. Change him back. Open sesame. Change him back. Everyone was stunned. However, after this ordeal, Xiao Su slowly regained his rationality, but his expression was even colder. He looked at Chu Mu's father and mother and said calmly, "Please don't worry. Xiao Su will definitely bring Ian back unscathed." Chu Mu's mother nodded in relief. This was someone Kai Kai trusted, and she trusted him as well. Chu Mu's father rubbed his chin and nodded. "That's my ice lolly son-in-law." Xiao Su ordered the two of them to be sent back to the courtyard. He then turned to look at the people who were standing in the rain, covered in mud. They looked battered and exhausted, but their eyes were shining. He waved his hand and said, "Go back and change your clothes. We'll discuss this later." "Yes." Everyone replied loudly and quickly left. Lin Fingyi walked to Xiao Su's side. He shook his head when he saw that Xiao Su was drenched and had a cold expression. "I thought no one would be able to stop you. I didn't expect Miss Chu's parents to be the most influential. I was rash just now." Xiao Su's expression was cold. Raindrops fell from his silver mask like crisscrossing scars, but it was inexplicably chilling. Lin Fingyi's heart ached when he saw Chu Mu's expression. "You said that you didn't even bat an eyelid when facing the enemy's traps. I thought that even if the sky fell, you would remain unmoved. I didn't expect you to have such an impulsive side. What should I say about you?" Even the usually cultured and refined Lin Fingyi couldn't help but criticize him. Xiao Su was silent for a while before he slowly said, his voice full of desolation, "Fengyi, you don't understand. Ian is different from those people. So what if the sky falls? I've never taken it to heart. However, if I lose myself, how different am I from a walking corpse?" Lin Fingyi stared at his good friend's back as he left. He couldn't help but be stunned. Every step he took seemed to be stepping on the ground, but in reality, it was as if he was stepping on his heart. Xiao, who had been acting as a vase for the entire afternoon, let out a long sigh. Her face was full of surprise as she said to the person beside her, "I didn't expect His Highness to have such deep feelings for Qingyan. It's even deeper than I thought." She knew that Xiao Su loved Qingyan to the bone, but she always thought that Xiao Su was a calm person who wouldn't change when things happened. Nothing could make him lose his composure. Until today, when she saw him lose control, she realized that Xiao Su's love for someone could be so passionate. He's a very righteous person. He's not as cold as he appears on the surface. However, Lin Fingyi's voice was full of emotion. "I also didn't expect that Chu Qingyan would be so important in his life, no, in his soul." If he didn't guess wrong, when he said that he lost himself, he was referring to Chu Qingyan. She was his life, the meaning of his life. Chapter 13-17. After Chu Qingyan entered the palace, she was arranged to stay in one of the halls. Because she rarely entered the palace, she didn't recognize which part of the palace she was in. However, she could tell that it wasn't too remote, and wasn't some cold palace. When she entered the hall, Mama Jiang said that she would first go and report to Imperial Concubine Yu. And then she left. After she left for a while, Ji Yunshu felt very bored, and began to examine the structure of the hall. In reality, she was observing the guards around her. She discovered that the surroundings were heavily guarded, and the palace guards were patrolling back and forth. Even if a fly flew in, they would be able to see it. Ji Yunshu couldn't help but frown. She was just a normal person, so why did Consort Yu have to watch over her like this? It was as if she was looking at a prisoner. She was also accompanied by the 4 maidservants who never left her side. She didn't have any personal freedom at all. Ji Yunshu originally didn't look forward to seeing Consort Yu, but now she wanted to see her immediately, and let her go back as soon as possible. She didn't want to stay in this deserted place. Waiting was torturous, so she had to find something to do. Thus, she found a few books on her desk. Precepts for Women? The 3 Obediences and 4 Virtues? What the hell was this? Ji Yunshu's mouth twitched and she dismissed the idea of reading. She decided to be a quiet beauty. After she calmed down, her 5 senses became very sensitive. There was a faint fragrance in the air that was very pleasant. She could distinguish some of the fragrances, such as jasmine and cold plum. What else was there? Ji Yunshu suddenly felt that her head was a bit heavy. How could it be? The 4 palace maids who had been closely watching Chu Qingyan saw that she was lying on the table and immediately walked over to her and brought her to her bed. This way, she shouldn't cause a ruckus, said one of the palace maids. Yes, she's too smart. Fortunately, we brought this incense. It can at least make her sleep until dawn, said another palace maid. Not long after, someone from the Moon Palace came to find out what had happened. When they found out that Chu Qingyan had fallen asleep, they returned to report. It's best if she doesn't make a fuss. Tomorrow, this consort will meet her. If she's tactful, this consort will arrange for her to meet with Ranner. Consort Yu had just returned to the palace when she heard the news. She snorted coldly and told them to take good care of her. After they left, Mama Jiang stepped forward to massage her master's shoulders. Nyang Nyang, is it really feasible for us to trick Chu Qingyan into the palace like this? The King of England is not an easy person to deal with. Consort Yu smiled when she heard Jiang Mama's worried words. She picked up her teacup and slowly took a sip before closing the lid. Did you think that Ben Consort would be so stupid as to directly confront Xiao Su? This time, this consort has dragged His Majesty down with her. With His Majesty as her backer, Xiao Su won't cause trouble for this consort. This old one is slow-witted. What does your highness mean? Mama Jiang was still confused. Consort Yu was currently in a good mood, so she wasn't stingy with her explanation. A few days ago, for some reason, His Majesty suddenly flew into a rage in the imperial study. He then found Ranner and promised to help him dissolve the engagement between Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan. Today, His Majesty suddenly summoned Xiao Su into the palace. Even if you think about it with your fingers, it's obvious what His Majesty's goal is. Now that this consort has brought Chu Qingyan into the palace, regardless of whether His Majesty or Xiao Su pursues the matter, this consort will use Ranner's illness as an excuse. This way, His Majesty won't be able to bear to punish this consort, but Xiao Su will think that this consort has been instructed by His Majesty, and will only target His Majesty. His Majesty originally wanted to force Xiao Su and see how much ability he has after enduring for so many years. It's just a pity that His Majesty is indecisive, so this consort decided to do a good deed and give him a push. At this time, it's hard to get off a tiger and His Majesty has no choice but to focus on dealing with Xiao Su. At this point, Consort Yu revealed a sinister smile. Once a trapped beast is forced into a desperate situation, it will definitely counterattack. However, this consort is very curious as to what exactly it will be like. Mama Jiang suddenly understood. No wonder your highness had us go and fetch the King of England when he entered the palace. So this was your intention? That's right. When the time comes, Xiao Su will think that this is just His Majesty's plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain. As a result, Xiao Su's resentment towards His Majesty will only increase. In any case, His Majesty doesn't like him, so just let them fight as they please. Consort Yu was very pleased. As long as she got rid of Xiao Su, then Ranner wouldn't be able to run away from the position of heir apparent. She would also be able to satisfy his wish of getting Chu Qingyan. When the time came, with the beauty in his arms, there was no need to worry that he wouldn't obediently inherit the throne. Your Highness is wise. Mama Jiang immediately flattered her. Consort Yu was very pleased with herself as she slowly drank her tea. This time, she was definitely going to get rid of Xiao Su, this eyesore, and ruthlessly slap Empress Liang in the face. When the time came, she would bring glory to the Fu family and become the master of the harem. At the same time, a man wearing black battle clothes quickly walked towards the imperial study. A moment later, he appeared in front of Sichuan Emperor. General Li Weiyuan pays his respects to His Majesty. Long live His Majesty! Sichuan Emperor couldn't help but smile at the return of his most trusted subordinate. Minister Li, there's no need to be so courteous. The journey must have been very tiring. Stand up and speak. Thank you, Your Majesty. Li Weiyuan stood up. Only then did Sichuan Emperor notice the bloodstains on his battle clothes. He couldn't help but frown. Minister, why are you in such a sorry state? Li Weiyuan cupped his hands and said, Your Majesty, I was just about to report this matter to you. When I was passing by Fengtai Mountain, I encountered two parties fighting. One of them was His Highness the Third Prince. Prince Yi? What's going on? Sichuan Emperor immediately narrowed his eyes. I don't know the cause. I only know that His Highness the Third Prince was attacked by unknown assassins on his way to Hugua Temple. They were few in number. If I didn't arrive in time, I'm afraid His Highness the Third Prince. Li Weiyuan recalled the scene and shook his head. How is Prince Yi now? Prince Yi's carriage fled in the chaos, but it was blocked on the road. Prince Yi was seriously injured and unconscious. I've sent him back to the prince's mansion for treatment, Li Weiyuan replied. That's good. Did you catch those assassins? Although he didn't care much about this son of his, he was still one of the few princes in the imperial family. Sichuan Emperor still asked. He was relieved to know that Prince Yi had returned to the prince's mansion for treatment. These people are very cunning. I didn't catch them. They even took away the bodies of their companions. They didn't even leave a trace at the scene. How abominable! Li Weiyuan said angrily. How dare they sneak attack a prince and defy the imperial power? How audacious! I'll give you full authority to investigate this matter. You must catch these people and bring them to justice. Sichuan Emperor was furious and immediately gave the order. Yes. Li Weiyuan accepted the order. He hesitated for a moment and said, Your Majesty, I feel like I've seen these assassins before. Chapter 13:18. The people who had freshened up were all gathered in the study. The storm outside had already lessened. The thunder had also disappeared, and the world was soaked in cool and moist air. However, the study at this time gave people the illusion that they were in an ice cellar. Everyone looked at each other, but did not dare to look at the source of the coldness. Everyone knew that their master was in a bad mood right now, so no one dared to provoke him. However, everyone looked at Lin Fengyi, who was sitting at the side. These gazes made Lin Fengyi feel like he was sitting on pins and needles. He had a headache. These people really knew how to find scapegoats. However, if even he remained silent at this time, he was afraid that his good friend who was immersed in his own thoughts would freeze them to death. Xiao Su, tell me what happened when you entered the palace today. Also, why was Miss Chu taken away? Lin Fengyi asked everyone's questions. Xiao Su only came back to his senses when he heard the voice. He put away the true emotions in his eyes and looked at everyone indifferently. In front of him, other than Lin Fengyi, there were his confidants, Turin, Hualing Muling, Ethereal, and Water Spirit, who had rushed over after hearing the commotion. These people in front of him were not his good friends of many years, but his subordinates who had followed him for more than 10 years. Feeling their sincere concern, his heart that was like an ice cellar finally warmed up a little. He recalled the conversation between his imperial father and him in the imperial study today, and his expression instantly turned cold. Imperial father wants to cancel the engagement between this prince and Ayan. If this prince does not agree, he will investigate the matter of Ayan disguising herself as a man to join the army and deceiving the emperor. When these words came out, everyone was in an uproar. Why does His Majesty want to cancel the engagement between Master and the young princess? How ridiculous! Back then, His Majesty made the decree himself. Why is he going back on his words for no reason? Going back on his words. This is simply too much. Turin, Hualing, and the others were like ignited firecrackers, exploding in an instant. Not only Xiao Laiqi, even Lin Fengyi, who was calm and collected, couldn't help but be stunned. He muttered, "Xiao Su, your imperial father isn't joking, right?" Xiao Su glanced at him indifferently. "Do you think I'm the kind of person who would joke around?" These words made Lin Fengyi shut his mouth immediately, but at the same time, his face showed confusion. "Why is your majesty doing this?" This was very puzzling. "You should know the reason." Lin Fengyi's words successfully attracted the gazes of the fierce cavalry, who were filled with righteous indignation. Each of them widened their eyes as they stared at their master's answer. Xiao Su was silent for a moment before he slowly said, "Because of Xiao Ran." Fourth Prince. Everyone was baffled. But there was one person who understood. "I know." Wuxia walked out. When she spoke, everyone looked at her in unison. She raised her head, her face not having the usual playfulness. Her voice was mocking as she said, "Xiao Ran has a crush on your little Wang Fei, but your little Wang Fei and His Highness have such a good relationship. How could she like him?" Therefore, Xiao Ran went to His Majesty and came up with a devious idea. He asked His Majesty to help him break off the engagement, so that he could snatch her away by force. He's simply a living scumbag. It's simply disgusting. Lin Fengyi face-bombed. "Where did you learn this play from? You even made it up so well." Huaxiao broke her facade in a second and immediately argued. "That's what the novels say. Because of love, hate. And when you can't love, you destroy it and then reap the benefits." Lin Fengyi shook his head, but from the corner of his eyes he saw his good friend's gloomy face. His heart thumped. "Xiao Su, did Huaxiao really hit the nail on the head?" Xiao Su remained silent, but everyone was stunned on the spot. Someone's fists could be heard cracking in the air. Despicable. The fierce cavalry and the others were furious. They wanted nothing more than to tear Xiao Ran apart. But what pained them the most was Sichuan Emperor's actions. For so many years His Majesty had been biased towards the fourth prince. As long as it was something that belonged to their master, he would take it away and steal it away. They originally thought that the fourth prince's heart wasn't bad, and their master valued him so much. They didn't expect that he would bite the hand that fed him. And His Majesty always burned the bridge after crossing the river. Whenever he needed their master, he would summon them without any guilt. If he didn't need them, he would casually throw them to a corner. As outsiders, they felt that it was too unbearable, not to mention their master. The pain and suffering he had endured was far more than they could imagine. Too biased, too biased. Aren't they both sons? How can they be like this? Huaxiao jumped on the side. At this time Xiao Su slowly said, "Ian once said that people's hearts are biased. It's not surprising." When the people present heard this, they could clearly feel the sadness in these words. Even their moods couldn't help but fall. Lin Fengyi lowered his eyebrows and thought for a moment. Then he raised his head and said with a serious expression, "Xiao Su, your imperial father wanted you to dissolve the marriage on your own because he didn't want to be cursed as an incapable ruler who goes back on his words. But thinking about it carefully, he didn't need to take such a big risk to offend you. To put it bluntly, your imperial father, who has 3,000 beauties in his harem, shouldn't care about women. You and Xiao Ran are brothers, so he shouldn't interfere in your matters. Because in his eyes, you're just a woman. There's nothing to fight over. After so many years, if I still don't understand my imperial father, then I've lived in vain." Xiao Su chuckled. Everyone looked at each other in confusion. Why did it feel like the study was even colder? However, he restrained his smile and said in a low voice, "He always suspected that I had a rebellious heart. Dissolving the marriage was just a test. He wanted to see if I would resist, and if I did, to what extent I would resist. If I didn't resist and followed his wishes, then it would help Xiao Ran. No matter what the result was, he wouldn't lose anything." When he finished speaking, the room fell into a dead silence. Everyone's face was full of anger. "Is His Majesty forcing you to rebel?" Lin Fengyi was shocked. Although it was one thing to guess before, it was another thing to have it confirmed. "I always knew that he couldn't tolerate me, but I didn't expect him to use such a method." Xiao Su sneered, the corners of his mouth curling up in a mocking smile. Such a despicable and disgusting method. He had been like this since he was young. He hadn't improved at all. Everyone present, except for Lin Fengyi, probably didn't notice that Xiao Su's aura had changed after he sat down in the study. It was as if the aura that had been suppressed in the past had suddenly been unsealed. It made people lose the courage to even look at him directly. Most importantly, even the respect he had for the Sichuan emperor had disappeared. When he spoke, there was less respect and more coldness. Lin Fengyi raised his head to look at the person sitting at the head of the table. His expression was covered by a mask. His entire body seemed to be soaked in a cold pool, emitting cold air. That pair of black eyes that were usually calm and indifferent now carried a destructive aura. Lin Fengyi couldn't help but be stunned. Chapter 1319. Lin Fengyi was slightly taken aback. He couldn't help but recall many years ago when Xiao Su first gained fame on the battlefield. One day he saw his friend covered in scars and learned that the Sichuan emperor had sent him to the most dangerous place to fight the enemy. At that time, Xiao Su was only 15 or 16 years old. He was still a child. He said resentfully, "When will you live for yourself?" He clearly remembered his friend's answer. "When I give up." When he gave up on that blood relationship. All this time, he thought that he would never be able to wait for that day. He didn't expect that today, he would finally see it. However, this kind of Xiao Su made his heart ache. He couldn't help but think that there was nothing more sorrowful than a dead heart. Because of his friend's stubbornness toward family, he swallowed all the grievances and unwillingness and bore them without any complaints or regrets. Back then, he was sent to the most dangerous mission for some unknown crime. He was thrown to the furthest border and had a narrow escape. Every day, his life was on the line. He didn't take these to heart because he didn't care. However, Chu Qingyan's appearance made up for his lack of familial love and allowed him to find the meaning of life once again. That was why his friend said today that if there was no Chu Qingyan, he would live like a walking corpse. However, his own family forced him to this point and took away the person he cared about the most. His Majesty probably never expected that Xiao Su would no longer be the child who could be bullied by others. Because once a person had someone he wanted to protect and an untouchable bottom line, he would resolutely cut off the fetters and be reborn to face the enemy head-on. This time, His Majesty probably wouldn't have a good ending like before. At the same time, he was very gratified. Finally, he didn't have to see his friend who didn't fight back when he was hit or scolded. "Master, are we really going to swallow this humiliation this time?" Hualing asked softly. At this time, Xiao Su was as cold as ice. However, the person who spoke was even colder. Ayan once said, "If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I won't let them off." In the past, I didn't care about these things. Now that I've been bullied to this extent, I don't want to endure it any longer. Let me ask you, are you willing to fight against the world with me? Originally, everyone was still trying to restrain their anger. However, when their master asked them this question, they no longer wanted to suppress their anger. After so many years of resentment towards the Sichuan emperor, they no longer wanted to suppress it. "We'll deal with whoever master says." Even if the heavenly king himself came, I, Hualing, would still beat him up. "Your Majesty is really going too far. Do you really think that we, the fierce wind cavalry, are pushovers? You'll have to ask if Turin's Qilin sword agrees or not. If we can't even protect our little princess consort, how will we have the face to travel to other countries? Water spirit doesn't allow anyone to bully girls. A doctor's hand can bring back the dead. However, when our own people are in danger, we can also kill them without leaving a trace. Long spears, short swords, cannons and explosives. As long as I, Turin, am here, master. You just have to say the word and I'll definitely make them for you." If these words were heard by the people from the imperial court, they would definitely be scared witless. These people were too bold. They actually dared to speak so arrogantly and look down on the imperial power. However, many people might have misunderstood the fierce wind cavalry. They might think that they were born to protect the country and the common people. However, the fierce wind cavalry wasn't loyal to the imperial court or the common people. They were loyal to Xiao Su, their master. This was also one of the reasons why the Sichuan emperor was so afraid of them. If one day, everyone in the Sichuan Empire raised their swords at Xiao Su, then the fierce wind cavalry wouldn't hesitate to draw their swords. Even if the entire Sichuan Empire was destroyed, they wouldn't even blink an eye. In the eyes of the fierce wind cavalry, their hearts didn't care about the country. They could fight for the survival of the Sichuan Empire without hesitation. They could sacrifice their lives to protect the common people. However, this was only because their master wanted to do it. They would accompany him and protect the common people. In other words, the fierce wind cavalry was born for Xiao Su. They would die for Xiao Su. Even if the emperor was pressuring them, they would only listen to Xiao Su's orders. When the emperor appointed the marriage, who didn't know that he was afraid that their master would use the marriage to expand his power? However, who cared? They followed their master everywhere to recover lost land and deal with enemies. Who had the time to play tricks with the emperor? The emperor's worries were too unfounded. The marriage with the Chu family. There were many people in the fierce wind cavalry that didn't accept this marriage. They were all sullen. Every time the emperor appointed a marriage, they would either be missing an arm or a leg, or their family would fall. There wasn't a single family that could be accepted. However, they found out later that this Chu Qingyan wasn't as weak as they thought. In other words, she had surpassed their imaginations. She was naturally intelligent and had a lively mind. She had saved their master time and time again. Not only was she talented in martial arts, business and war, she also treated their master very well. She was able to pull their master out of the abyss of self-imprisonment. What was there to be picky about with this kind of mistress? However, they had already officially recognized her existence and were willing to follow her as their second master. They were willing to dedicate their lives and future to her. Why would they want to steal their little princess now? The fierce wind cavalry had always been fierce, so how could they tolerate this? Master, let's kill our way into the imperial palace. The atmosphere was tense and the blood in his body boiled. Hualing couldn't control the wild energy in his body and immediately jumped out. However, as soon as he said this, he was beaten up by his companions. Just now you were telling your master not to be impulsive, but now you're so brainless. Ethereal took back his hand and shook his head. Hualing felt wronged from being beaten up. He just wanted to see if the Sichuan emperor's fist was harder, or if it was theirs. What was wrong with that? Stop arguing. Iron is still in their hands. We can't fight recklessly. We have to rely on our wits. The calm Xiao Su released an imposing aura that made people respect him. They couldn't help but submit from the bottom of their hearts. Turin, transfer the hidden guards from the various countries and quickly gather in the capital. Yes. Hualing, transfer the fierce wind cavalry. Don't alert anyone and quickly arrive outside the capital. Yes. The first few orders were given very decisively. Until the last one could clearly feel that Xiao Su was silent for a while before coldly saying, Water Spirit, have Pigeon Feather send the order to Fuli Mountain Range. Start the plan. Yes. That plan. Although he had never participated in his good friend's plan, Lin Fingyi could rely on his own judgment to sniff out what was going on. His Majesty wanted to force Xiao Su into a desperate situation to see his strength. Perhaps this time he really could get what he wanted. However, he didn't know the consequences. Could he and the entire Sichuan bear the consequences? Although as a subject of Xixian, he should have felt worried when he saw that a catastrophe was about to come, but he felt a sense of relief as if he had finally spat out the turbid air in his chest. Chapter 1320. Right now, we're in the capital and everyone else is thousands of miles away. We don't have enough manpower. If we make a move now, it'll be like hitting a rock with an egg. So pass down the order to not act rashly for the time being. Xiao Su's calm voice was like a breeze that brushed past everyone's restless hearts, calming them down in an instant. It was as if they had eaten a reassuring pill. This subordinate understands. Everyone said in unison. Xiao Su nodded and his gaze fell on Water Spirit. Send someone to investigate where Ian is in the Imperial Palace and find out what their goal is. Yes. Water Spirit responded. After thinking for a while, Xiao Su said, "Also, investigate what Xiao Ran has been doing recently." Thinking about it carefully, Xiao Ran hadn't shown up for a while. When he thought about how Xiao Ran and Imperial Father had plotted against him and the little fellow, other than anger, there was more disappointment in his heart. This subordinate understands. As for the matter on Mount Feng Tai, continue to investigate according to Ian's previous arrangements. What this prince hates the most is using this prince's name to commit evil, and then using this prince as a scapegoat. The disappearance of the little fellow had already made him irritable enough. Now that there was an assassination attempt on Mount Feng Tai, it was no doubt adding fuel to the fire. If he caught something that could be used against him, no matter who it was, he wouldn't be merciful. Good. During this period of time, be more vigilant and hide your tracks. Don't let anyone discover you. Everything is for the future. After Xiao Su gave his last order, he let them go and do their work. After everyone left, Xiao Su looked up and saw that his good friend was still sitting there. After muttering to himself for a while, he said, "Fengyi, take Xiuli and go back. In the future, don't step into the King of England's residence." Hearing his good friend's words, Lin Fengyi wasn't surprised at all. He understood him very well, and didn't want to implicate him. But Xiao Su forgot that ever since they became close friends more than 10 years ago, there was nothing that could separate them. But now wasn't the time to say this. Because if he dared to say it, Xiao Su would dare to drive him out of the residence and draw a clear line between them. Lin Fengyi really wanted to beat up such a considerate friend to vent his anger. But considering his skills, Lin Fengyi gave up. He didn't answer Xiao Su's question but asked directly, "Are you serious this time? Have I ever lied?" Xiao Su asked with a chuckle. Lin Fengyi shook his head. "I've never seen such a desperate counterattack. Are you ready to welcome all of them? Even if you'll be condemned by the masses?" Xiao Su Lin Fengyi, Fengyi 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 Fengyi. Lin Fengyi understood what he meant and walked in front of him. He reached out and patted his shoulder. "Although as an official of the imperial court, I shouldn't be so emotional, I still want to say that this day has finally come." Xiao Su looked at him, his gaze softening. "Go back." Lin Fengyi smiled and reached out his hand. "I wish you success. I'll be counting on your auspicious words." Xiao Su reached out to hold his hand. When Lin Fengyi walked out of the study, he immediately saw little Bunny standing under the roof in a daze. He walked over and reached out to touch her head. His voice was gentle as he said, "Are you frightened?" If a normal person heard what Hualing and the others said in the study today, they definitely wouldn't be able to take it. They were clearly going against imperial power. They were simply crazy. So when he saw the little rabbit's dazed appearance, he thought she was scared stiff. He felt a bit of regret. He shouldn't have let her in. However, he forgot that this little rabbit of his did not belong to the category of ordinary people. She pulled his hand away from her sleeve and then complained as she ran her fingers through her hair. "I already told you, the hairstyle is very important. Don't mess it up. Also, which eye of yours saw that this miss was scared stiff? Who has more guts than me?" Lin Fengyi was stunned. Then he heard her whisper excitedly, "That scene was really exciting. To be able to see such a scene in my life, I can die with no regrets." Lin Fengyi's heart was about to collapse. Then he felt her hand tug at his finger. He couldn't help but look down at her, and met her curious gaze. Miser, does His Highness really want to go against the imperial court in order to save Qingyan? Lin Fengyi held her hand, his voice carrying a trace of desolation. After being suppressed for close to 20 years, it's time for him to release it. Even a rabbit would bite when it was anxious, a dog would jump over a wall when it was anxious, let alone a sleeping lion. Once it was angered, who knew if this world could withstand its roar? In the past, it was the officials who forced the people to rebel, but now it was the father who forced the son to rebel. It really was laughable, laughable. All right, then let's go back to Jiangnan. Xiao suddenly spoke. Lin Fengyi frowned slightly. Although his good friend also wanted him to go back to Jiangnan to seek refuge, when these words came out of the little rabbit's mouth, it was very confusing. Abandoning a friend wasn't her style. At this moment, her voice traveled into his ears again. "My family's businesses are spread all over Jiangnan, and I'm worthy of the title of the richest person in Jiangnan. In addition, I've earned a lot of money from working with Qingyan this year. Perhaps I can't be considered the richest person in Sichuan, but I can at least squeeze into the top 3. I have to go back as soon as possible and sort out the assets under my name. If His Highness really wants to fight with the imperial court, he'll definitely need a lot of manpower and resources. I don't have the manpower, but in terms of money, I can help with everything I have. I'll provide him with all the food he needs, money to buy weapons and other necessities. Xiao counted with her fingers. If it's still not enough, I can take out all the savings left behind by my ancestors. My father seems to have saved up a sum of money for my dowry. Although it's not as much as my ancestors' savings, it's still quite a lot. Before Xiao could finish her words, she was pulled into a strong embrace. Lin Fengyi hugged her tightly, the emotions in his eyes fluctuating. It was enough to see how strong his emotions were at this moment. His voice trembled slightly. "Why are you doing this?" A muffled sound came from his embrace, with a matter-of-fact tone. "Because Qingyan is my friend, and your highness is your friend. You said before when you were at your loneliest, it was your highness and young master Yi who pulled you out. Now that your highness is in trouble, we'll help if we can. Moreover, Qingyan is the woman I admire the most in my life, my best friend. How can I sit by and do nothing?" Lin Fengyi hugged her tightly, but his tone was teasing. "But you're not only taking out your family's assets, you're also losing your dowry. Doesn't it hurt?" "It hurts. How can it not hurt?" She puffed out her cheeks. "But think about it, with your highness' bravery and fighting skills, with Qingyan's intelligence and wisdom, do you think they'll lose? Maybe in the end, I'll make a comeback and they'll bring me even more wealth. I've never made a losing deal." Hearing the little rabbit's sneaky smile, he couldn't help but stroke her head tenderly. The little rabbit had risked everything today to help Xiao and the others, but she didn't really do what she said at the end. Although she was a merchant, and a merchant was greedy, she knew how to avoid risks. And this time it was more like a gamble of life and death. There was no chance of winning. The little rabbit just didn't want to admit it. She just wanted to help them. "Okay, let's go back to Jiangnan. Wait, didn't I tell you not to rub my head?" Chapter 1321. Your Majesty, I feel like I've seen these assassins before. Li Weiyuan's words made the Sichuan emperor raise his eyebrows and look at him. "Oh, tell me about it." Li Weiyuan nodded. "Your Majesty has always asked me to pay close attention to the fierce cavalry's movements and analyze their organization, moves, fighting methods, and find out their weaknesses. After so many years, I've learned a lot about them. When I observed them fighting today, I found that the assassins' moves were similar to the fierce cavalry's. But that's all. If I met an outsider, I wouldn't be able to tell them apart. But they can't fool me." Hearing this, the Sichuan emperor frowned. "You mean to say that the purpose of impersonating the fierce cavalry to assassinate Prince Yi was to frame the King of England?" Li Weiyuan nodded. "I can't rule out this possibility." The Sichuan emperor bent his fingers slightly and tapped them on the table. His eyes were deep. Just when Li Weiyuan thought that His Majesty wouldn't say anything more, His Majesty spoke. "Don't make this public. I have my own plans." Although this matter didn't seem to have anything to do with Xiao, it was different on the surface. If he didn't listen, His Majesty would use this matter to force him to submit. The Sichuan emperor twitched his lips. God was on his side. "Yes. You've just returned to the capital, and I should let you rest for a few days. But now is the time to use people. I'll let you investigate this matter and find out who's behind it." The Sichuan emperor looked at the general in front of him and instructed him earnestly. Li Weiyuan lowered his head in fear and trepidation and replied, "It's my honor to be valued by your Majesty. I'm willing to serve your Majesty, even if it means sacrificing my life." The Sichuan emperor stroked his beard with satisfaction. "I'm very happy to hear what you said. Then I'll have to trouble you for this period of time. As you wish." The dark clouds dispersed and the rainstorm stopped. A day of heavy rain, but it felt like 3 long autumns. Xiao stood under the eaves with his hands clasped behind his back. All he could see were the lanterns hanging in the distance. The The dim yellow light was like fireflies as far as the eye could see, making the whole world seem lively. If the little fellow was here, she would be so happy, because she had a pair of eyes that were good at finding beauty. A jade pendant appeared on his slender fingers. He rubbed the jade pendant with deep affection, as if he was looking through the pendant to look at someone. His fingers slowly closed as he held the jade pendant tightly in his palm. The cold sensation caused his mind to waver slightly. Then he fixed his gaze on the jade pendant, cold as jade. I'll definitely bring you back. Outside, the birds were chirping. Chu Qingyan woke up amidst the commotion. When the white light entered her eyes, she was stunned for a moment. She did not know where she was because the decorations in front of her were very unfamiliar. The Great Qin Manor could not have such decorations. However, when she saw the 4 palace maids standing in the room, she finally remembered where she was. Palace! How did I fall asleep last night? She sat up and lazily leaned against the wall of the bed. However, her entire body was on guard. Her eyes seemed to casually sweep over these people. She's probably too tired. Her ladyship originally wanted to summon Miss, but unfortunately, Miss fell asleep on the table. Her ladyship is kind and benevolent. After she found out, she told us not to disturb Mrs. Rest. One of the palace maids bowed slightly and replied respectfully. Chu Qingyan rubbed her forehead and casually said, "So it was like that. Many thanks for Nyang Nyang's understanding." At an angle where no one could see, Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes and carefully identified the smell in the air. She found that there was no longer the complex fragrance she smelled last night. She frowned slightly. It seemed that entering the palace this time didn't bode well for her. Otherwise, the other side wouldn't have tried to keep her in the palace for the night. But she didn't understand. Why did they try so hard to keep her in the palace? Perhaps she had to wait until she saw Consort Yu to know the answer. Then may I ask when you will bring me to see Consort Yu? She stood up and asked with a smile. It's still early. Nyang Nyang should be having breakfast with His Majesty right now. Miss should eat first. As the palace maid spoke, she took out the food from the food box and placed it on the table. People had no choice but to lower their heads under the eaves. Chu Qingyan understood this principle, so she couldn't rush it. Thus she sat down. Since yesterday afternoon, she hadn't eaten a drop of water. Speaking of which, she was really starving. She had to fill her stomach first before she had the strength to fight. However, by the time she saw Consort Yu, it was already after breakfast and lunch. Chu Qingyan looked at the noblewoman who sat on the chaise lounge like a princess and didn't care about her at all. She couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Since this person looked down on her, why did she call her to the palace? May I ask why Nyang Nyang is looking for Qingyan? She had been summoned for no reason, and had been set up to stay overnight in the palace. Her patience had been worn out. She didn't plan on beating around the bush with Consort Yu, and got straight to the point. Consort Yu was drinking tea at this time. When she heard this, she took a sip even more leisurely. Then she put the lid back on and reached out her hand. A palace maid took the teacup and handed her a handkerchief. Consort Yu used the handkerchief to wipe her mouth. Only then did she look at Chu Qingyan. Miss Chu should have seen Ranner some time ago. Consort Yu's casual mention made Chu Qingyan's pupils contract. Could it be that Consort Yu knew about her and Xiao Ran? I did. Since she asked this, she naturally knew about their meeting. There was nothing for her to hide. Then does Miss Chu know that Ranner was seriously ill at the time? Consort Yu continued. If one listened carefully, they would be able to hear the annoyance in her voice. Chu Qingyan was stunned. He was sick. Thinking back, his complexion was indeed abnormal. It was just that she had been shocked by his boldness and hadn't paid much attention to it. Consort Yu scoffed, her eyes filled with resentment. At the time, he ran out of the palace to see you even though his fever hadn't subsided. It was the first time this consort had seen him so stubborn. But Miss Chu, what did you repay him with? You made his illness even worse. Does Nyang Nyang mean to say that fourth prince hasn't recovered from his illness? No matter what, Xiao Ran was her friend. She couldn't help but ask anxiously. Consort Yu harumphed. This consort really doesn't see what's so special about you that he can't forget you. The imperial physician said that he has a mental illness that's hard to cure with medicine. If that wasn't the case, this consort wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to get you into the palace. Nyang Nyang, what are you planning to do? Chu Qingyan immediately looked at her vigilantly when she sensed that there was something wrong with Consort Yu's words. Consort Yu smiled ambiguously as she said, "Don't worry, this consort is only inviting you to visit Ranner. Aren't you two friends? Isn't it normal to be concerned about a friend who's sick?" Chu Qingyan frowned slightly. She did not know why, but Imperial Concubine Moon's smile made her feel uneasy. Chapter 1322. Of course. The fourth prince is Qingyan's friend, so of course Qingyan has to visit him. If the palace servant who came to the estate to inform me, Qingyan wouldn't have come empty-handed. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but pat her head when she said this. Oh right, Qingyan remembered that there is a high-quality ginseng in the storeroom. How about letting Qingyan go back and bring it to His Highness in the palace? Chu Qingyan wanted to use this opportunity to leave. However, Consort Yu saw through her trick and mocked. Miss Chu, there's no need to be so polite. No matter how good the things in your estate are, they can't compare to the imperial palace. So it's fine that you're here, but there's no need to bring the things. Chu Qingyan lowered her head in agreement, but she felt even more uneasy. Consort Yu didn't plan on letting her go back? It seemed like she had to wait until she saw Xiao Ran before making any plans. At this time, Consort Yu reminded her. Ranner's health hasn't been good recently, so you have to watch your words. If you don't go along with his wishes and make his illness worse, even Xiao Su won't be able to protect you. Her tone was really disgusting, but she couldn't say anything at this time, and could only bite the bullet and agree. After Consort Yu made her presence known, she arrogantly brought her to see Xiao Ran. Although Chu Qingyan couldn't see through Consort Yu's plan, she was still shocked when she saw Xiao Ran lying on the bed. A few days ago, he was still a handsome youth with rosy lips and white teeth. Now he was so thin that she almost couldn't recognize him. Xiao Ran, how did you get so sick? She frowned and asked with concern. Xiao Ran already knew that Chu Qingyan was coming today. From last night until now, he had been so excited that he couldn't sleep. Now that he saw her, his fingers trembled. Even though he had mentally prepared himself, he still couldn't believe the person in front of him. She had black hair and red clothes, beautiful and eye-catching, as if he was in a dream. Rand, our imperial mother has already brought her here. You must remember to take your medicine properly later. Consort Yu couldn't bear seeing her son's infatuated appearance. Out of sight, out of mind, out of mind. She turned and left after giving her instructions. After Consort Yu left, Chu Qingyan felt a little more at ease. She sat on a chair brought by someone beside her. Was filled with guilt toward Xiao Ran. From Consort Yu's words. From Consort Yu's words. Didn't you say it was a simple cold? Why hasn't he recovered after so long? Xiao Ran looked at her in a daze. It was as if the person in front of him would disappear in the blink of an eye. Qingyan, I thought you wouldn't see me again. His voice was hoarse and low. Originally, Chu Qingyan had been rather pleased that Jiang Yi had brought her into the palace for no apparent reason because of him. Now seeing him in such a state, how could she still be angry? She sighed softly and said, I heard that you are not taking your medicine properly and are not cooperating with treatment. Aren't you wasting your life like this? Xiao Ran smiled bitterly. I don't have the energy to do anything recently. I feel like life has lost its meaning. I've never felt like this before. Even though I never had a goal, I feel more and more lost in this period of time. What do you want me to say to you? She shook her head and angrily said, Right now the most important thing is to take care of your body. When you're sick, your immune system will weaken and your mental state will be affected. You deserve to be so passive. Hearing this familiar concern, Xiao Ran's eyes lit up. I was wrong for being so passive before. But I heard from Imperial Mother that you'll be staying in the palace for a period of time. If you're with me, I'll definitely get better quickly. Stay for a period of time? Chu Qingyan frowned. Why didn't I know about this? Xiao Ran didn't notice that there was something wrong with her expression. He smiled and said, That's right. Imperial Mother said that she was afraid that I'd be lonely, so she invited you into the palace to be her companion. Since you've entered the palace, doesn't that mean you've agreed? Chu Qingyan's lips couldn't help but twitch when she saw Xiao Ran smiling happily by himself. Which eye of yours saw that I agreed? But now that he said it, she had been tricked into entering the palace by Consort Yu. But if it was just for her to accompany Xiao Ran, there was no need to go through so much trouble and be so secretive about it. Could it be that there was some ulterior motive behind all this? At this time, a palace maid came in with medicine. Miss Chu, this is His Highness medicine. Chu Qingyan took it and tested the temperature before passing it to him. Drink it. Xiao Ran revealed an awkward expression. After I fell ill, my limbs became weak. Usually, the palace maids have to feed me medicine. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan reflexively turned around to call for a palace maid. But when she saw that there was no one in the room, black lines slid down her forehead. Qingyan, just leave the medicine here. It's fine. Xiao Ran's eyes were downcast. His expression was very lonely, but he forced a smile as he spoke to her. She really wanted to facepalm. What was going on? She took the spoon and scooped a spoonful of medicine to his mouth. Drink it. Qingyan, you're the best. Xiao Ran's eyes instantly widened. His eyes were filled with light, and his tone was very cheerful. Chu Qingyan resisted the urge to pour the entire bowl of medicine down his throat. She pursed her lips at him then said, Don't say anything. Drink it quickly. Oh. Xiao Ran obediently opened his mouth to drink the medicine. Just as he was about to say something to ease the atmosphere, another spoon was already at his mouth. Thus, the entire process was very quiet and swift. Chu Qingyan put the empty bowl to the side. She glanced at Xiao Ran, whose face was wrinkled into a bitter gourd. Only then did she calm down and think about her situation. The big ice cube should already know about her entering the palace, but there was still no movement. The big ice cube probably didn't know what these people were up to, so he was waiting to see what would happen. Today, she would first discuss returning to the Fu with Consort Yu. If it didn't work out, she would think of a way to send a message to the big ice cube. While Chu Qingyan was deep in thought, Xiao Ran noticed that she wasn't speaking. He couldn't help but look a little disappointed. Qingyan, do you still hate me? Don't you want to accompany me in the palace? His pitiful appearance made him look like an abandoned kitten or puppy. If it was any other time, she definitely wouldn't be so nice to him. He was already so old, yet he still acted like a little girl. But when she saw his pale face, she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. It was better not to bicker with a sick person. It's nothing. Rest well and don't let your thoughts run wild. Alright then, talk to me. I haven't seen you in a long time. Xiao Ran opened his sleepy eyes and stared at her. Chu Qingyan felt a headache coming on. Don't force yourself. If you want to sleep, then go to sleep. Oh. Xiao Ran grinned at her, and then slowly closed his eyes. She knew that sick people liked to sleep. But what she didn't know was that Xiao Ran had been in a deep sleep during this time, and was now very energetic. So when she got up to find Consort Yu, she didn't notice that the person behind her slowly opened his eyes. The tiredness from before disappeared from his eyes. Chapter 13:23. Xiao Ran watched as that beautiful figure slowly disappeared behind the muslin curtain. The naive and sickly look on his face disappeared without a trace. Although his face was still pale, at least he didn't look as weak as before. He admitted that he had pretended to be so pitiful to gain her sympathy, and he had succeeded in gaining her sympathy. However, that wasn't all he wanted. He could tell that although Qingyan cared about him, if his lady mother hadn't brought her here, she probably wouldn't have taken the initiative to visit him in the palace. He still remembered what she had said. If she couldn't let go of him, they couldn't even be friends. Once she became serious, she was very ruthless. He didn't understand her personality in the past, but now he was experiencing it vividly. Although Imperial Father's words had given him some confidence, he didn't know what Imperial Father would do. Now that his lady mother had brought Qingyan over, it gave him a sliver of hope. However, as long as Imperial Father and Imperial Mother were on his side, he didn't need to be afraid of anything. Qingyan, this time, I won't let go of you no matter what. Xiao Ran looked at the empty bowl on the table, and his lips curled slightly. Then he closed his eyes again. Consort Yu was in the outer hall. While drinking tea, she saw Chu Qingyan slowly walk out and asked, His Highness is asleep? Yes, he fell asleep after taking the medicine. Chu Qingyan followed her words and replied. Consort Yu nodded and continued to drink tea before saying, In the past few days, I've had to persuade him for a long time just to get him to take a bowl of medicine. I didn't expect him to be so cooperative the moment you came. It's really rare. Perhaps His Highness the Fourth Prince knows that Your Highness is worried and can't bear to disappoint Your Highness. His Highness is a very filial child. Chu Qingyan casually replied. Consort Yu smiled. How could she not know her own child? If he was really filial, he wouldn't be lying on the bed half dead. Chu Qingyan glanced at the tea the palace servant brought her, but didn't touch it. Instead, she stood up again and said respectfully to Consort Yu with a smile. Your Highness, since His Highness is already asleep, then Qingyan won't disturb him any longer. I'll visit His Highness the next time I enter the palace. Qingyan will take her leave. Before she could even turn around, Consort Yu slammed the teacup in her hand onto the table. The hall fell into a dead silence. Chu Qingyan feigned ignorance and looked at her. Imperial concubine Moon looked at her enchanting face, and her heart was filled with disgust. Ran, had been bewitched by her appearance and didn't know that this person didn't even have him in her heart. If Chu Qingyan knew what Consort Yu thought of her, she would probably raise her head and laugh. What a person's heart thinks is what their eyes see. Objectively speaking, Chu Qingyan wasn't very seductive. Only Higashio Motetsu's devilish aura could be considered seductive. In fact, she could be said to be extremely beautiful. Even though she often wore crimson clothes, it made her look even more otherworldly. Chu Qingyan, do you think that you'll be able to leave the palace after entering? Consort Yu said coldly. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes. Was she finally going to reveal her fox tail? Qingyan doesn't understand what Your Highness Consort Yu is saying. She looked at her calmly as she slowly replied. Consort Yu sneered. No, this consort knows that you understand. I'll be honest with you. If Ranner doesn't recover from his illness, don't even think about taking half a step out of the palace. Consort Yu's words carried a blatant threat. Chu Qingyan couldn't suppress the anger in her heart and said bluntly, You want to put me under house arrest? Impudent. You actually dare to speak to Your Highness like that. Someone slap her. Nanny Jiang no longer had her previous gentle and respectful demeanor. She had turned into Nanny Rong and wanted to punish her. Chu Qingyan took a step forward and coldly glared at Nanny Jiang. You dare. Nanny Jiang was stunned by her imposing manner. When she finally reacted, she flew into a rage out of humiliation and wanted to personally slap her, but Consort Yu stopped her. Nanny Jiang, you can withdraw. Nanny Jiang reluctantly withdrew, still glaring fiercely at Ji Yunshu. Chu Qingyan harumphed and withdrew her gaze from Nanny Jiang to look coldly at Consort Yu. At this moment, Consort Yu was a bit stunned when she saw the coldness in Ji Yunshu's eyes. Ji Yunshu had been obedient and let others trample on her before, but now, she gave off a completely different vibe with just a change in her gaze. But so what if Ji Yunshu got angry? Wasn't everything still within Ji Yunshu's control? Consort Yu wiped the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief and ignored Chu Qingyan's anger. She straightened her clothes and unhurriedly said, Don't make it sound so unpleasant. It's better to use the word house arrest to replace it. For example, as a guest. When she heard this, Chu Qingyan was so angry that she wanted to laugh. This person was quite shameless and could even lie through her teeth. Your Highness Consort Yu, Qingyan is the King of England's fiancée that His Majesty personally bestowed upon her. I'm afraid that it wouldn't be good for her to stay in the palace for long periods of time. Also, it wouldn't be good for His Highness the Fourth Prince. After all, in half a month His Highness the Fourth Prince will be engaged to Miss Jing. Chu Qingyan said with a slight smile. Her smile didn't reach her eyes as she stared fixedly at Consort Yu. Chu Qingyan, this consort knows that you're very smart. Otherwise, the King of England wouldn't have risked the crime of deceiving the monarch to send you onto the battlefield. You played a huge role in defeating Nansong. However, The harem isn't a place where you can come and go as you please. That's why this consort advises you to obediently stay in the palace and not cause trouble. When Consort Yu said these words with a smile that wasn't a smile, Chu Qingyan immediately stiffened. Although she had only mentioned this matter lightly, the threat in her words was very strong. She actually knew that she had disguised herself as a man and gone onto the battlefield. This matter had clearly been covered up, but unexpectedly, it was still brought up. From the looks of it, Consort Yu was fearlessly keeping her in the palace. If Big Ice Cube caused a ruckus in the palace, she had a way to make sure that they were in the wrong. However, she was more worried about whether Sichuan Emperor knew about this matter. Sichuan Emperor was already wary of Big Ice Cube. If they found out, they would use this as a pretext to make a fuss and trap Big Ice Cube in the wrong. Seeing the changes in Chu Qingyan's expression, Consort Yu smiled in understanding. She then said to the palace maid beside her, "Take Miss Chu away to rest. When His Highness the Fourth Prince wakes up, bring her over." Yes. The palace maid walked in front of Chu Qingyan and stretched out her hand. "Miss Chu, this way please." Chu Qingyan looked at Consort Yu's smug expression and couldn't vent the anger in her heart. She could only stifle her anger and turn to leave. When the hall returned to silence, Jiang Mama asked in confusion, "Nyang Nyang, why didn't you let this old servant teach Chu Qingyan a lesson and dampen her spirit? Let's see if she dares to talk back to you next time." "You were too impulsive." If Ranner saw the wound on her face, how were you going to explain it? Consort Yu looked at her disapprovingly. Then she laughed softly and said, "There are thousands and thousands of ways to teach someone a lesson. Why choose this kind of low-level method?" Jiang Mama had been blaming herself, but when she heard the last part, her eyes lit up and she nodded knowingly. This old servant understands. Chapter 13:24. When night fell, the fish belly turned up once again. After the turmoil of war, Prince Yi's mansion slowly quieted down. However, the atmosphere was very gloomy. The day before yesterday, their lord was sent back. He was covered in blood and his breath was so weak that it was almost undetectable. If they hadn't tried their best to save him, their lord would have stepped into the gates of hell by now. "Steward, how is it? Has Lord woken up?" Lin Jiangdong appeared in the courtyard early in the morning. When he saw the steward come out, he immediately went up to him and asked worriedly. The steward shook his head and sighed. "Although we saved Lord's life, the doctor said that whether he can wake up depends on his luck." Lin Jiangdong recalled the scene when Lord came back that day. He frowned and said to the steward, "No matter what condition Lord is in, we must try our best to save him. Tell the doctor to wait in the courtyard. Without permission, no one is allowed to leave." The steward could only nod at his words. After he finished speaking, Lin Jiangdong strode into the room. When he saw the person lying on the bed, he frowned and stood by the bed, sighing deeply. If Lord hadn't cared about Pang Zhijing that day, he wouldn't be in such a critical situation now. Now, not only is Pang Zhijing's life uncertain, but you also suffered such a serious internal injury. If you don't wake up soon, our future plans will be in vain. How can you be so foolish? At this moment, a guard knocked on the door and said that he had something to report. Lin Jiangdong immediately went out. When the room returned to silence, the unconscious person's fingers trembled slightly and his eyelashes fluttered. Then he slowly opened his eyes. Life uncertain? His lips trembled as he whispered to himself. Xiao instantly woke up. His eyes widened. When he saw that he was in his own room, he couldn't help but prop himself up. When the servant who delivered the medicine saw this scene, he immediately cried out in surprise, "Steward, Mr. Lin, Lord is awake, Lord is awake." Xiao turned a deaf ear to her cries of joy. He just wanted to sit up and get off the bed. When Lin Jiangdong and the butler saw that their lord had woken up, they couldn't help but smile. However, when they saw his actions, the two of them walked up to him. "Lord, what are you doing? You've just woken up, so don't move around. Otherwise, your wound will split open again." The housekeeper immediately supported him and let him sit against the bed wall. He didn't dare to touch him for fear of touching his wound. When Lord was sent back, there wasn't a single part of his body that was in good condition, which made his heart ache. "That's right, Lord. Although our plan wasn't completed, His Majesty knows who tried to assassinate you. At the very least, it aroused his suspicion. Our goal can be considered to have been achieved. You can rest at ease and recuperate. Everything can wait until your wound is completely healed before making any plans, Lin Jiangdong advised with a smile. Now that you've woken up, as long as you take good care of your body, there's always hope. This time his injury was too serious. Even sitting up took half of his strength. Xiao panted lightly before looking at Lin Jiangdong, who was standing in front of him. Where's Xijing? Lin Jiangdong had prepared a lot of things to say and report on the situation of the past few days. He didn't expect that Lord's first words after waking up would be about the good-for-nothing princess. Although he looked down on the princess, he still answered truthfully. After the princess fell off the cliff, I sent some people to search for her, but they haven't found anything yet. In fact, he didn't think that she was at the bottom of the cliff at all. He didn't send many people, so it was fate that they found her. Moreover, the cliff was so high that even if they found her, it would only be a corpse. Although Xiao was injured, he wasn't stupid. He could tell that Lin Jiangdong was being perfunctory from his words. He was furious. How long have I been asleep? A day and a night, the butler replied. The doctor originally said that Lord would need at least 3 days to wake up. I didn't expect him to wake up so soon. Indeed, the Lord is blessed. A day and a night? Xiao's eyes widened when he heard this. His fingers trembled as he held onto the edge of the bed. How could he sleep for so long? Xijing was still waiting for him to find her. Thinking of this, Xiao stood up from the bed despite being stopped. He clutched his chest and walked towards the door. Although his body hurt, it couldn't compare to the pain in his heart. Every step was like stepping on the tip of his heart. It was so painful that he couldn't breathe. Men gather all our men. Yes. Lin Jiangdong immediately walked out. When he heard Xiao's order, he immediately walked in front of him and asked anxiously, Lord, you haven't recovered yet. What are you doing? She fell off the cliff because of this prince. This prince wants to find her and bring her back. After Xiao coughed, he pursed his lips and looked at Lin Jiangdong. If you don't do your best to find her, then don't interfere in this matter. Lin Jiangdong was stunned. This was the first time he had been reprimanded so harshly by Lord. Or rather, this was the first time he had seen Lord lose control of his emotions after following him for so long. He found it unbelievable, but at the same time, he felt that Lord was too impulsive. Lord, you are not feeling well right now and need to rest. Leave this matter to me. This time, I won't do it half-heartedly and search seriously. Lin Jiangdong considered his health and couldn't help but negotiate with him nicely. Xiao chuckled and said in an unquestionable tone, This prince won't be at ease if I leave it to you. If you stop this prince again, don't blame this prince for being rude. Lin Jiangdong saw that Lord was determined to go. The suspicion in his heart from before was now more and more confirmed. Lord was tempted. With the great cause at hand and revenge at hand, how could Lord have a problem at this time? At this moment, a guard jogged over. Lord, Crown Prince Peng said that if you wake up, you are to find him. He has something to discuss with you. Upon hearing this, Lin Jiangdong immediately said, That's right, Lord. The cooperation between you and Crown Prince Peng has yet to come to a conclusion. Let's recuperate first before we discuss the next step of the plan with him. Revenge had always been Lord's goal. Now, only this matter could move Lord's heart. However, after Xiao heard the guard's words, his entire person's expression became somewhat strange. Lin Jiangdong was pondering when he heard Lord's cold voice. Go back and tell Peng Huang that his people hurt my people. This prince will not let him off easily. The moment Xiao said this, Lin Jiangdong was immediately stunned. When he came back to his senses, he hurriedly pleaded with Lord. Lord, this is Prince of Nansong, our future partner. How can you destroy our cooperation like this? Cooperation? This prince doesn't have such a stupid partner. You can't even differentiate between friend and foe. Xiao snorted coldly. Lord, although Crown Prince Peng's people did something wrong, we are still cooperating with him. We can't be too ruthless. Furthermore, the cliff is so high that the princess might have already. Lin Jiangdong advised him, afraid that he would destroy their cooperation. However, no one could understand Xiaoho's feelings at this moment, especially when he heard Lin Jiangdong's unfinished sentence. His chest tightened and he suddenly couldn't breathe. He wiped away the tears in his eyes and said word by word, "This prince doesn't care about anything else. If she's alive, this prince wants to see her. If she's dead, this prince wants to see her corpse. It's that simple." Chapter 1325. Xiaoho's words made Lin Jiangdong feel uneasy. He widened his eyes and looked at the pale Xiaoho in front of him. He really didn't want to admit this fact. "Lord, you still have feelings for the princess." Feelings? Xiaoho was slightly startled. He didn't know, but at this time, he really wanted to see her. At this time, everyone had gathered. Xiaoho restrained his expression and ordered, "Go to Fengtai Mountain." "Lord!" Lin Jiangdong called out loudly. Xiaoho turned to look at him, his eyes as cold as water. "Sir, what else do you want to say?" "Lord, at this time, you can't be tied down by love. Think about the plans we've made over the past 10 years, Lord." He knew that once Lord made up his mind, he wouldn't change it. But seeing the Lord so stubborn, he wanted to persuade him not to be impulsive. Xiaoho's eyes were deep. Because of his words, his mind flashed with the images of all the revenge he had done over the years. Finally, a white light appeared and he regained his clarity. "Sir, I haven't forgotten about the revenge, but to me, the most important thing now is Xijing." After saying this, he led his people out of the courtyard without looking back. Lin Jiangdong's face instantly turned pale. Looking at the figures in the distance, he couldn't help but shake his head. His Highness had given up just because he was one step away from the door. What a pity! In the King of England's residence. "Master, His Majesty sent people to seal off the capital. Everyone has to go through strict checks. Our people spent a lot of effort, and only 2 people went out. They were afraid of being discovered, so the others didn't dare to act rashly." Water Spirit looked troubled. She sent out dozens of pigeons yesterday, but she didn't expect the Sichuan Emperor to act so quickly. The entire capital seemed to be under surveillance. There were patrolling soldiers everywhere. Every street and alley was guarded. Anyone who looked suspicious would be stopped and questioned strictly. It was very unfavorable for their actions. "I think His Majesty is guarding against us. Water Spirit, you came in through the secret passage, so you definitely didn't notice that there are many more people outside the residence. Those people are dressed as commoners and hang around outside all day, but they are actually watching our every move. I originally wanted to go out, but now I don't dare to go out casually." Huo Ling kicked the pillar angrily. He had never felt so sullen. If it wasn't for the little princess being in the palace and making them have scruples, he wouldn't even put these people in his eyes. Turin looked at the 2 of them and then looked sternly at the person behind the table. "Master, even if His Majesty was guarding against you in the past, he never did it so obviously. It seems that this time, he plans to shed all pretense of cordiality with you." When Huo Ling and Water Spirit were complaining, Xiao Su's expression had been cold the entire time. When he heard Turin's words, he changed his posture and leaned against the back of the chair. His tone was cold, because he knows that no matter how much Benwang backed down in the past, he can't swallow the hatred of stealing his wife. Ethereal stood to the side. She rarely spoke, but now she couldn't help but say, "Master, His Majesty is going too far. Is he planning to trap us in the capital? What does he want to do?" Rather than saying that he is watching Benwang, it's better to say that he is afraid. But he is more excited. He has always wanted to force Benwang to act. He wants to know how many trump cards Benwang has, so he will definitely make a move next. It's just that Benwang can't guess at the moment. When Xiao Su said this, his gaze swept to Water Spirit. "Have you found Ian's whereabouts?" Water Spirit looked ashamed. "Forgive the subordinate's incompetence. Even now, we still haven't found out where the young princess is in the Imperial Palace. The original guards in the Imperial Palace have all been replaced. It's a bitter situation. The spies we buried in the Imperial Palace can't even get close to the inner courtyard of the Imperial Palace. Many of the eunuchs and palace maids have been cleared out. Those who serve His Majesty and consort you are all his trusted aides. The security is very tight. Normally, even a mosquito can't enter the palace where they go. We originally wanted to arrange for people to investigate at night, but we found that even the roofs of the palace are guarded. This time, the security of the imperial palace is the tightest it has been in many years. They are just hiding a young princess. Is there a need to guard the imperial palace, like an iron bucket? Kuo Ling almost cursed, but because his master was here, he could only enjoy it in his heart. This isn't your fault. Imperial father has always been cautious. If he wanted to hide someone, it wouldn't be so easy for others to find her. Xiao Su waved his hand, but his eyes darkened even more. At this time, Turin spoke up. Master, His Majesty seems to be very afraid that you will find the young princess by doing this. Also, I feel that there's more to this than meets the eye. Xiao Su snorted coldly. He's afraid that this prince will turn against him after finding Ayan. Also, the plan this time is probably something he came up with on the spur of the moment. It's not very thorough. Right now, he really needs time to perfect the plan. So hiding Ayan is not only to anger this prince and make this prince panic, he also wants to stall for time. When he said this, Xiao Su's lips curled into a sneer. It was because Imperial Father knew that Ayan was his weak spot, so he used her without any scruples to do things that he had always wanted to do, but never had the chance to do. That's right, once a person had a weak spot, it was easy to break through. However, Imperial Father did not understand another principle. That was, when a person had someone they wanted to protect, they would become stronger when they met the strong and stronger when they met the strong. Pigeon Feather has already gone to the Fuli mountain range to send a letter. In less than a month, they will receive the news. Before they arrive, other than stalling for time, we must also prepare to escape. Xiao Su continued, Water Spirit, the most important thing for you right now is to find a way to find Ayan's location. Once you rescue Ayan, we will immediately leave the capital. Water Spirit nodded solemnly. This subordinate will do everything in my power to find the young princess consort. Turin's eyes lit up at this time. He stepped forward and asked, Master, now that our people are being closely monitored, it is somewhat inconvenient for us to move. Why don't we find some outside help? This subordinate believes that Her Majesty the Empress and the Liang family will be very willing to help. When these words were said, everyone looked at their master. It was indeed a good idea. Xiao Su shook his head when he heard this. I understand Imperial Mother and Grandfather's thoughts very well. Once they participate, the situation will be difficult to clean up. At that time, we will walk a path that Ayan and I don't want to walk. Perhaps we will really bear an infamy for all eternity. His idea was very simple. Rescue Ayan, and then take her far away. Even if he had to fight against the imperial court, he would not hesitate. However, he did not want to become a sacrifice for imperial power, a chess piece for Imperial Mother and the Liang family, and then spend years or even decades fighting for that position. Everyone nodded in deep agreement. At this time, someone came in to report. Lord, the second prince requests an audience. Xiao Su raised his brows. Why did second brother come at this time? Invite him to the drawing room. Chapter 1326. Xiao Yao came suddenly, and his appearance was also very sudden. Although Xiao Su had a lot on his mind right now, seeing his second brother covered in grass and a few chicken feathers on his head, he couldn't help laughing. What happened to you? Kuo Ling on the side couldn't help laughing as he said, Second prince, did you sleep in a chicken coop? Xiao Yao was already depressed. Seeing this master and servant laugh at him, his face filled with grievance. He looked at Fire Spirit Tiger. Is this prince someone you can talk about as you please? Go, no respect for your elders. Kuo Ling gave a laugh and retreated behind his master. Xiao Yao gave a snort and slowly picked up his teacup, elegantly drinking from it. If it wasn't for his current appearance, he would have looked quite elegant. Eldest brother, this door of yours really isn't easy to enter. In order to not be discovered, I had to climb over the wall. Chi. I never thought that there would be a day when I, the elegant and refined lord, would fall to the point of climbing over a wall. He had been sighing to himself, but the scene suddenly changed. He angrily said, "Eldest brother, when did your king's palace start raising poultry? I remember that there was a small garden behind that wall. How did it become a chicken coop? It caused me to fall quite heavily, and I was chased far away by several hens. Living this long, I have never encountered such a sullen situation. Today, you will kill those hens for me. I want to eat chicken and drink chicken soup to vent the anger in my heart." Xiao normally had an unrestrained appearance and was very easy to talk to, but as long as one didn't touch his bottom line, it was fine. However, his temperament was very high and it was like he had been chased by chickens with nowhere to run. This was simply a great shame for him, so he wanted to seek justice from Xiao like a little child. Actually, he was normally like how he described himself. When Xiao heard his words, he could not help smiling. Behind him, Hualing was laughing uncontrollably. Then under Xiao's man-eating gaze, he stopped laughing and explained, "Those domestic animals are raised by my family's Master Chu, who is also my family's little princess father. Actually, you are considered lucky. Master Chu took Xiao Huang and Xiao He for a walk. Otherwise, if you met those two dogs, it wouldn't be just like this." The corner of Xiao's mouth twitched. He found it hard to believe that his eldest brother would allow someone to raise poultry in his mansion. It was unbelievable. Hualing said that he was raised by your father-in-law. Is that true? Do you have any objections? Xiao glared at him coldly. Xiao was so scared that he immediately sat up straight. He swallowed his saliva and waved his hand. "No problem. If you can't answer, I'll take a detour." Xiao sat down on the main seat and looked at him inquisitively. "Tell me, what are you doing here?" He did not believe that his second brother would climb over the wall at this time, just to drink a cup of tea. If that was the case, he would not be wasting time here with him. Xiao put away his frivolous appearance and looked seriously at the person sitting on the seat. "I've been strolling around the capital these past 2 days, and found that the atmosphere was not right. There were patrolling soldiers everywhere, and it was even more strict than when the Southern Song envoy entered the capital. I wanted to find you to ask for some information, but I didn't think that I would hear the news that the Southern Song princess had fallen off a cliff, and that third brother was seriously injured and unconscious. I thought that I could come here to relieve myself, but I didn't think that your place would be even more dangerous. Are those people outside the Imperial Palace guards?" Xiao raised an eyebrow. "You have good eyes." Xiao chuckled. "Even if they changed their clothes, I would still recognize them. After so many years, Imperial Father has sent many people to catch me. I've almost become familiar with them." After saying this, he saw that he was unmoved. Xiao rubbed his nose and entered the main topic. "Did you and Imperial Father have a falling out?" Xiao frowned. "He's the one who wants to steal my person." As expected, Xiao slapped his thigh and said in a tone of realization, "I was wondering why Imperial Father invited Miss Chu into the palace for no reason. So it was to provoke you." Just now in the prince's mansion, he had overheard the servants' conversation. He did not think that Imperial Father would use such a despicable method to force his eldest brother to take action. "So you came here to talk to me about these things?" Xiao frowned. Hearing the impatience in eldest Imperial brother's voice, Xiao immediately stopped talking. He opened his fan and said unhurriedly, "Of course not. I know that you must be worried about Miss Chu's whereabouts right now. And I also know that your people can't find her, so I specially came to make it convenient for you." Xiao's eyes brightened. "Speak. Your people can't go in and find her, but that doesn't mean that I can't find her." Seeing his puzzled expression, Xiao smiled mysteriously. "Eldest brother, have you forgotten that my imperial mother is still in the palace? Although she has not participated in the struggle for favor and power for many years, if she wants to find someone, she can still do it." Xiao's words made Xiao's lips curve. "I really did forget. Then I'll have to trouble you." Hearing this, Xiao laughed and closed his folding fan, standing up. "Don't be so polite at this time. We brothers don't distinguish between you and me." Xiao nodded gratefully, but said in a serious tone, "After we find Ian, don't have any more contact between us. I don't want to implicate you." Xiao laughed softly. "Imperial brother, what time is it now? Don't always think about others. Also, your second brother is not an idiot. I know how to protect myself. You go about your business. I know what I'm doing. Wait for my good news. He patted Xiao Su's shoulder, then turned with a smile. But when he left the hall, the smile on his face slowly disappeared. Imperial brother, I haven't done anything for you in all these years. This time, I will definitely protect you well. With Consort One's help, we will definitely be able to find the young Princess Consort as soon as possible. Hualing was a bit excited. Consort One was Xiao Yao's birth mother. Looking in the direction Xiao Yao left, Xiao Su nodded with a faint smile. In the Imperial Palace, Chu Qingyan sat in a chair with her brows deeply furrowed. Consort Yu's words made her feel uneasy. Although Shishuan Emperor and Consort Yu didn't say it on the surface, they were secretly plotting against the Big Ice Cube. This matter of hers would definitely be used by Consort Yu to deal with the Big Ice Cube. She had to find a way to contact the Big Ice Cube and tell him about her situation. However, for the past 2 days, other than staying in her own room, she was brought to see Xiao Ran. No matter where she went, there were 4 palace maids watching her. Needless to say, there were also imperial guards watching over her. It could be said that it was difficult for her to move an inch. But the more it was like this, the clearer her mind was and the calmer her heart was. Because she knew that panicking would only make her panic. She knew how to contact the Shaolai cavalry, but she had tried several times here without success. It seemed like she couldn't contact them at all. Suddenly, a light flashed in her mind, making her think of someone. Chapter 1327. Chu Qingyan took out the bone whistle that she had hidden on her body. It was given to her by Dong Ting 5 years ago. Big Ice Cube's men might not be able to enter, but Dong Ting's men might not be able to enter. Thus, she decided to test out this bone whistle once she understood the changes in the guard shifts. At this time, hearing the sound, she immediately put away the bone whistle. Miss Chu, His Highness is looking for you. The palace maid pushed open the door and bowed to her. She was already used to Xiao Ran looking for her several times a day. She stood up and pulled back her sleeves. Let's go. She found that the place she lived was very close to Xiao Ran's palace. She only needed to walk a short distance to get there. She thought that it was to make it easier for Xiao Ran to summon her. Also, the guards along the way were very strict. If she wanted to escape from this place, it would be too difficult. So she gave up on the idea of climbing the wall in the middle of the night. Entering the hall, Chu Qingyan put away her emotions. A faint smile appeared on her lips. She looked up and unexpectedly met Xiao Ran's expectant eyes. These past few days, she had seen this expression many times, but she was still a bit stunned at that moment. She was very puzzled. She had never given him the wrong impression before. She was only a 10-year-old girl back then. Not to mention the 5 years they had been separated. Even if they met again after many years, they had not seen each other that many times. Why did he not let her go? But this question, she could not ask Xiao Ran face to face. First, she was afraid that something would happen to his body again. Then she might enter the palace vertically and leave lying down. Second, she did not want any more accidents to happen and implicate the Big Ice Cube. The current situation was very clear that the Big Ice Cube was also restrained. Otherwise, there would have been no news in the past 2 days. Qingyan, what are you thinking about? Come here. Xiao Ran saw her standing there in a daze and could not help but wave at her in confusion. Her train of thought interrupted. Chu Qingyan gathered her thoughts. A faint smile appeared on her face again. She walked toward Xiao Ran. The imperial physician said that you have recovered well these past 2 days. You might be able to get out of bed and walk tomorrow. Yes, it's all thanks to your care. Otherwise, I might have to lie in bed for a while. Xiao Ran grinned, revealing his neat white teeth. He looked very simple and honest, as if he had no shrewdness in his heart. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips when she saw his smile. She hoped that he wasn't involved in what Consort Yu was doing. By the way, Qingyan, try this dessert. I specially asked the Imperial Kitchen to prepare it for you. It's made according to your preferences. You'll definitely like it. As he spoke, Xiao Ran pushed a few plates of exquisite pastries on the small table in front of her. Then he looked up at her, like a child who was eager to be rewarded, expectantly and carefully. Facing this kind of gaze, even if she wasn't hungry, she couldn't refuse. She reached out to try a piece and nodded with a smile. It's really not bad. Receiving praise, Xiao Ran was as happy as a child. He wanted to pull her hand, but she cleverly avoided him. He was slightly surprised, but he still cheerfully said, "It's good that you like it. In the future, tell me what you want to eat, and I'll have the Imperial Kitchen make it for you." Chu Qingyan said with a faint smile, "Don't just take care of me. The most important thing right now is your body. You have to drink all the medicine and tonic soup that I made for you. Only then can your body recover faster." "I'll listen to everything you say." Xiao Ran nodded without any hesitation. Hearing this, she was silent for a while before probing. "Xiao Ran, I've already been in the palace for 2 or 3 days. I don't know how the Wang Fu is doing. Can you tell your mother to let me leave the palace?" When she said this, Xiao Ran still had a faint smile on his lips, but the smile in his eyes disappeared. His voice was as usual with a bit of grievance as he said, "I'm seriously ill right now. How could you bear to leave the palace? Also, Imperial Brother is so powerful. Even without you, he can still manage the Wang Fu well, so it's fine if you stay a bit longer." "But I'm still worried." She shook her head as she said, "You've been by Imperial Brother's side for so many years. You've only been by my side for a few days and you're already impatient?" Xiao Ran's voice suddenly became low. He turned his back to her and only left her with a pitiful back. Chu Qingyan finally noticed the change in his mood, and couldn't help but sigh in her heart. This Xiao Ran was like a child who couldn't get candy, and was throwing a tantrum. In order to not make his illness worse, she could only compromise. Okay, I take back what I said just now. Your medicine is here, take it first." When she said this, Xiao Ran seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. When he saw the palace maid bring the medicine, he looked at her again. Chu Qingyan chuckled. "You have hands and feet. If you do it yourself, you'll have ample food and clothing." Hearing her words that he hadn't heard in a long time, Xiao Ran seemed to have returned to the time when he first met her. The haze in his heart disappeared and he obediently took the bowl of medicine and drank it. This action stunned the palace maids on the side. It was the first time they saw His Highness take medicine so cooperatively. They couldn't help but give Chu Qingyan a hint of respect. "Qingyan, when my body gets better, how about I play a song for you?" And then, one asked with great interest, the other answered carelessly. However, Xiao Ran's mind was on the song that he was going to play and didn't notice Chu Qingyan's absent-mindedness. And Chu Qingyan, who felt the subtle change in Xiao Ran's state of mind, felt that she couldn't stay here any longer and had to leave as soon as possible. So the two had their own thoughts. In the imperial study, Sichuan Emperor and the right Prime Minister were discussing. This time, Zhen wants to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Does right Prime Minister have any good suggestions? Sichuan Emperor said straightforwardly. The right Prime Minister was surprised by Xixian Emperor's straightforwardness. Thinking of what Xixian Emperor had done during this period of time, as well as his sister's private communication, he suppressed his surprise. For their faction, this was simply a great opportunity to eradicate the left Prime Minister's faction. Previously, he turned a blind eye and didn't participate because he was afraid that His Majesty didn't like his officials to overstep the bounds. Now that His Majesty had taken the initiative to speak, he could act boldly and decisively. This old official feels that if we want to cut off the King of England's escape route, we must control the Liang family and their disciples in the court. Otherwise, if we don't eliminate the roots, they will grow again when the spring wind blows. The right Prime Minister's obscure words made Sichuan Emperor's face brighten. You are worthy of being Zhen's capable minister. Sichuan Emperor stroked his chin and hesitated. The left Prime Minister's faction has a deep foundation and won't be so easily shaken. Beloved Minister, what good ideas do you have? The right Prime Minister smiled. Since he could sit in this position, he had to have some ability. This old official has a lot of evidence of the crimes of the right Prime Minister's faction over the years. I haven't had time to present it to Your Majesty. Now it can be used. Sichuan Emperor smiled when he heard this. That's good. The right Prime Minister smiled slyly. If this evidence was in normal times, it wouldn't be able to shake the Liang family at all. But now that His Majesty wanted to punish them, it didn't matter what the severity was. Any piece of evidence could consign the Liang family to eternal damnation. After waiting for so many years, this day finally came. Chapter 1328. Time passed quickly, and 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. At the bottom of the cliff, a blue figure had been standing there for a long time. He coughed from time to time, and his face was completely pale. However, his eyes were fixed on his surroundings, and he didn't relax at all. Lord, you've been here for 2 days and 2 nights. Go back and rest. Leave this place to your subordinates. Xiao's personal guard couldn't stand it anymore and stepped forward to persuade him. Don't say any more. I know what I'm doing. Xiao raised his hand and stopped his subordinate from continuing. The guard had no choice but to retreat. At this time, the people he sent out returned. Xiao looked at them, his fingers slightly curled, and his voice carried a hint of nervousness. Did you find her? Everyone shook their heads. One of them stepped forward and said, Lord, we've searched the entire bottom of the cliff for the past 2 days, but we still can't find the princess. Xiao's face stiffened. Then he pursed his lips and ordered coldly, continue to search. If you can't find her, expand the search area. I want to see her even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground. Everyone looked at each other, but they didn't dare to question Lord's orders. They immediately left. In front of him was a vast expanse. The grass was as thick as a finger, and as tall as a person. There was wet soil and sharp stones everywhere. Xiao couldn't help but clench his hands. It's been so many days. Zhijing, where are you? I don't dare to leave here. They said there are wild beasts here. I'm afraid they'll appear and hurt you. I'm also afraid that if I leave and find you, the first person you see won't be me. However, I'm even more afraid that I won't be able to find you. Lord, we've searched the east. There's no one. What about the west? No one. What about the south? Still no one. Xiao was silent. His entire body seemed to be shrouded in a huge shadow, making it impossible for others to see his current expression. However, one thing was certain. The aura emitted from his body was cold, lonely, and sorrowful. It was so strong. The guard standing in front of him suddenly mustered up his courage and said, Lord, the wild beasts here appear and disappear unpredictably. Maybe the princess, she's already gone. He's no longer around? These words were like a curse, constantly circling around his ears. At that time, she was still in his arms, laughing and bickering. Now in the blink of an eye, someone was telling him that she might not be here anymore. He felt that someone was constantly digging in his heart, slowly hollowing it out. Nonsense, continue. Lord, the brothers who went to the north to search have returned. What are they carrying? Someone cried out in surprise, attracting everyone's attention. Xiao was stunned. She was already in front of him. A few guards carried a person and stopped in front of him. Then they gently put her down. The person was covered with a white cloth, so the person's appearance could not be seen clearly. However, the corner of her pink robe made everyone silent. Lord, the princess has been found. The leader said, and then silently retreated. Xiao stood rooted to the ground in a daze. He looked at the stretcher covered with white cloth. For a moment his mind went blank. It was as though he couldn't think. What did you say? He moved his lips and muttered. That person couldn't bear it and repeated. It's the princess. The princess has been found. Xiao shook his head and said in disbelief. This prince hasn't verified it yet. It can't be her. As he said, his trembling hand slowly reached for the white cloth. When he touched the corner of the cloth, he subconsciously retracted his hand. He didn't want to admit it, but he was very frightened. Finally, he closed his eyes and pulled the white cloth away. Suddenly, a person whose face could no longer be seen clearly appeared in front of him. He fell from a high place and smashed into a huge rock in the north. His appearance was scratched by the sharp edges and his limbs were broken. The time of death was 3 days ago, which coincided with the princess's fall. Moreover, his figure and clothes were similar. The subordinate reported word by word, causing Xiaoho's heart to sink to the bottom of the valley bit by bit. Although everyone was constantly verifying that this person was him, he still couldn't believe it. He bent down and stretched out his hand to touch her ankle, only to see the 7 exquisite locks obediently wrapped around that slender ankle. His pupils shrank and he staggered back a few steps. Pang Huang had put the 7 exquisite locks on her in order to restrain her. He had also given the key and compass to him to keep an eye on her. He remembered that in order to get the key, she had used all kinds of methods and even drugged him. Unfortunately, she had taken the wrong medicine and made a mistake. He had flirted with her, but in the end, the two of them had parted on bad terms. His eyes swept over the transparent jade bracelet on her wrist. He felt his chest tighten, as if his heart had been hollowed out. However, his eyes were still staring at the bracelet. 3 days ago, he had personally put it on her. In order to cure his poison, she had offered the most precious thing of a girl. He knew that she loved him deeply and didn't want to disappoint her. Thus, he had given the only thing his mother had left him to her, acknowledging that she was his only wife in this life. However, the jade bracelet was still there, but she had already passed away. Pooh! He spat out a mouthful of blood. Lord! In the hazy white light, he seemed to see a figure slowly walking toward him. Xiaoho, didn't I tell you not to make yourself so miserable? Why won't you listen? Come back, I'll listen. He reached out, trying to touch the figure, but he was trapped in darkness. How many times in a trance, seems to see you flowing in a sea of people. Vaguely you have appeared, in the blink of an eye, you have disappeared. You are like brilliant fireworks, how can I not miss you? In a remote courtyard in the capital. Young palace master, didn't you ask this subordinate to pay attention to the King of England's movements? This subordinate found that in the past 2 days, the King of England's people have been moving around frequently. Although many people have been fooled, they can't fool this subordinate. Xuanqi Zimo reported proudly. Higashio Motetsu supported his chin with one hand and leaned lazily against the couch. Did you find out the reason? Xuanqi Zimo chuckled. Not yet, but this subordinate has already arranged for people to investigate. There will be news soon. Higashio Motetsu nodded. Speaking of which, this young master hasn't seen the girl for a few days. She said that she would be leaving the city in a few days. Why hasn't there been any movement? Just as he was feeling puzzled, a sound suddenly came from the air. His ears twitched, and when he heard it clearly, he immediately got up from the couch and walked to the window to listen carefully. Young palace master, you. As soon as Xuanqi Zimo spoke, his master raised a hand to stop him. He immediately shut his mouth. His master's expression was very serious. Based on his experience, he should hide far away. Not good, something happened to the girl. After the sound stopped, Higashio Motetsu said in a low voice. How did you know? Xuanqi Zimo finally asked curiously. She was playing the bone whistle this young master gave her. She hasn't played it in so many years. This time, it's unusual, and the direction of the sound. Higashio Motetsu looked into the distance, his eyes deep. It came from the palace. Chapter 1329. This young master has to enter the palace. Higashio Motetsu narrowed his eyes. Perhaps Miss Chu wanted to blow the whistle on a whim. Besides, it's not unusual for her to enter the palace. Isn't she the King of England's fiancée? It's normal for her to enter the palace. Xuanqi Zimo was a little selfish. The young palace lord had yet to recover from his injuries, and he didn't want him to take the risk of entering the palace. Higashio Motetsu shook his head. That's impossible. I know her. She knows how important the bone whistle is to me. Besides, considering the recent movements in the King of England's estate, it might have something to do with her. No matter what, I have to enter the palace. Seeing that he had made up his mind, Xuanqi Zimo had no choice but to compromise. All right, then this subordinate will arrange for you to enter the palace. The sooner the better. Higashio Motetsu said coldly. Xuanqi Zimo looked at the sickly expression on his face and opened his mouth. In the end, he sighed and left without saying anything. In the palace, Chu Qingyan played with the bone whistle in her hand. She thought about the gift she'd received from him in the eastern courtyard and frowned. She didn't know if he'd be able to find her tonight. Just then there was a soft sound. If her hearing wasn't good enough, she wouldn't have heard it at all. She opened her eyes and immediately turned to look at the window. Under the fluttering curtains, she saw a purple figure standing under the moonlight. He looked even more handsome than before. In the past few days, she'd only seen unfamiliar faces. Seeing someone familiar, her eyes couldn't help but redden. "We've finally met, and you're already crying. People who don't know better might think that I bullied you. If word gets out, how can I, the Moon Palace's young palace lord, live? How can I survive in the Jianghu in the future?" There was a teasing tone in his voice, but when he walked up to her, she could clearly see the worry in his eyes. When he saw that she was unharmed, he sighed heavily. She'd placed her last hope on the whistle, hoping to get lucky. She hadn't expected him to really come. "I didn't want to either, but I couldn't control myself. I didn't expect you to really come." Chu Qingyan rubbed her sore eyes. In the past few days in the imperial palace, she had been on tenterhooks and on guard everywhere. Only when she saw friends she was familiar with could she let down her guard. At this moment, she felt both agitated and wronged. "Didn't I say that whenever you need me, just blow the whistle and I'll appear?" Higashio Motetsu looked at her and couldn't help but reach out and rub her head tenderly. She nodded gratefully. Because of the special occasion, she quickly collected her emotions. Higashio Motetsu scanned his surroundings. After a moment of contemplation, he met her eyes. "You summoned me because Xiao Su's men couldn't enter. How did you know that I could?" Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows and smiled. "The people guarding me are Consort Yu's men. The Moon Palace works for her. As the young palace lord, who would dare to stop you? So I thought that perhaps no one would be able to enter, but you wouldn't make things difficult for your own people. Am I right?" "Smart." Higashio Motetsu snapped his fingers, then looked confused. "Then why did you believe that I would come to see you? Since I'm a member of the Moon Palace, you should be more cautious. Aren't you afraid that I played a part in trapping you in the Imperial Palace?" She wanted to roll her eyes at this question. "You might not believe me, but I relied entirely on my intuition. Because I believed that you wouldn't hurt me." Chu Qingyan's confident tone made Higashio Motetsu burst with joy. He pressed his fan against his forehead and lowered his head to smile. His beauty instantly filled the hall. Even Chu Qingyan, who was used to seeing beauties, couldn't help but sigh in amazement. As expected, when a beauty smiled, it was enough to cause the fall of a city. However, she didn't dare to say this in front of him. "You're right. I, Higashio Motetsu, would never hurt my own people." After laughing, he became serious. "I haven't been involved in the affairs of the Moon Palace, so I didn't know that you were under house arrest here. I also didn't know what my father and consort you were plotting. However, one thing I can be sure of is that not only is the security in the Imperial Palace tight, but it's also the same in the city. The atmosphere is very tense, as if a fight could break out at any moment. I guess." His gaze fell on Chu Qingyan, his expression grave. "It should be related to you and Xiao Su. To be more precise, it should be targeting Xiao Su. Consort Yu wants Xiao Ran to take the position of crown prince, so she has to get rid of Xiao Su. This is without a doubt. Otherwise, she won't be able to convince those ministers in the imperial court who insist on the seniority. How despicable." Chu Qingyan angrily slammed the table. She had been suppressing her anger for a long time, and now she had nowhere to vent it. Her entire body was on fire. Suddenly, she remembered something. "That's right. Consort Yu knows that I went to the battlefield. If this news spreads, it will be very disadvantageous for His Highness." Higashio Motetsu's expression darkened when he heard this. "I know what they want to do." "What?" "Hurry up and say it," she asked urgently. He looked at her, his eyes dark. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "You should have noticed Xiao Ran's feelings for you. Consort Yu put you under house arrest here for Xiao Ran, and also to threaten Xiao Su. They have something on you, and with your safety, Xiao Su can't act rashly. Otherwise, with his personality, he would have broken into the Imperial Palace long ago. You're under their control this time." In the end, Higashio Motetsu made this definition. Chu Qingyan frowned and pursed her lips. Her eyes were filled with deep confusion. But we've already planned to leave the capital. Why are they still chasing after us? Could it be that they want to force us into a desperate situation? Aren't they afraid that a cornered dog will jump over a wall and a cornered rabbit will bite? I'm afraid that's their goal. Higashio Motetsu replied mildly. What? She cried out in shock. Higashio Motetsu said seriously. It's like two gamblers. Neither of them knows the number of the other's dice. If you don't want to gamble, you can tell the other that your number is very small. However, the other party doesn't believe you and insists that you open the lid. Now this is their worry. They're worried that you're trying to trick them, so they'd rather force Xiao to make a move, and then eliminate the source of trouble. Damn it! She gritted her teeth angrily. It's been so many years. If His Highness wanted that position, he would have done so long ago. Why wait until now? Moreover, the most troublesome thing is that the one controlling everything is the Emperor. Therefore, Xiaosu's chances of winning this time are not very high. You must be prepared for a life and death struggle. He was familiar with the strength of the Moon Palace sect. After so many years, not only did they have an unshakable position in the Jianghu, but they had also slowly infiltrated the court. Therefore, if the Moon Palace sect and the Fu family joined forces, and with the help of the Sichuan Emperor, it would be difficult for Xiao to escape unscathed. He sighed softly, and then looked at her with bright eyes. Then what do you want me to do for you? I can take you out of the palace. Chapter 1330. Higashio Motetsu's words stunned Chu Qingyan, but when she regained her senses, she immediately shook her head. No, if you do this, they won't let you off. What does it matter? At most, I'll be reprimanded by my father. No matter what, I'm still the next successor of the Moon Palace. They won't dare to do anything to me. Higashio Motetsu said carelessly, as if he didn't care at all. Chu Qingyan firmly shook her head. It's not that easy to take someone away from here. Moreover, there are experts from the palace all around. I believe that you won't have any problems with one against a few, but with so many people, you won't be able to fight them. Moreover, she closed her eyes and a trace of anger flashed across her face. She gritted her teeth and said, My internal energy has already been sealed by them. Right now, I'm just an ordinary person. Not only can I not help you, I might even drag you down. That's why I can't leave. After falling asleep that night, when she woke up the next day, she noticed that something was wrong with her body. It seemed that the problem came from the fragrance that she smelled that night. Hearing this, he immediately grabbed her wrist to check her pulse. After a moment, he let out a long breath and narrowed his eyes. As expected, it's already been sealed. It seems that their plan this time is imperative. That's what I'm worried about. But right now, I can't leave and His Highness's people can't come in. This makes me even more worried. Chu Qingyan withdrew her hand and strolled around the room with a heavy heart. Then is there anything that I can help you with? Looking at the beautiful figure under the light, he felt worried for her and blurted out. Chu Qingyan turned around and was silent for a moment before saying, This time, I called you here because I need your help with something. His Highness must be very worried about me being here, so I want you to help me send a message. Tell him that I'm fine, and that Consort you already knows that I'm on the battlefield. Tell him to be more careful. Is that all? He raised his eyebrows. Yes, that's all. She nodded and smiled. I believe that he will keep me safe, so there's no need to say anything else. The unconditional trust in Chu Qingyan's eyes made his heart tremble slightly. In this kind of situation where both sides couldn't protect themselves, she could still firmly believe in Xiao. He didn't know if she was too stupid or too confident. But he couldn't refute it. For so many years, he had watched her and Xiao walk step by step. The two of them had never disappointed others. No matter how dangerous the situation was, the two of them were always able to overcome it. He suddenly felt envious and jealous at the same time. How he wished that the person by her side was him. How he wished that he could also gain her deep trust. All right, At this moment, the crisp sound of a flute came from outside the room. Both of them were stunned. To be able to play a flute in the heavily guarded palace, that person's identity was definitely not ordinary. Dongting, you leave first. Be careful and don't let anyone find you. Chu Qingyan immediately warned. You be careful too. If there's anything, blow the bone whistle to contact me. He also knew that it wasn't good to stay here for long. He didn't want to cause trouble and implicate the little girl. He nodded without any objection, and then quickly left the way he came. After sending Dongting away, Chu Qingyan took a deep breath and then walked out of the room. Such a clear sound, there was only one possibility. The flute player was in her courtyard. Sure enough, when she stood at the door, she saw a figure standing under a tree with his back to her. A delicate and light blue robe fluttered in the night wind. He was tall and slender, holding a jade flute in his hand. He was elegant like an immortal. Under the hazy moonlight, it was really pleasing to the eye. But when that person turned around, the admiration in her eyes suddenly froze. Xiao? At this time, he didn't put down the flute and continued to play. But he slowly approached her. His gaze was warm like water, but his eyes were burning like fire. It was hard for her to imagine that such extreme emotions could be vividly expressed in a pair of eyes. When he arrived in front of her, Xiaoran's lips hooked up. His fingers fluttered, nimbly playing the flute. A pleasant and moving melody flowed out. The moonlight, the beautiful man, and the sound of the zither formed a beautiful and bewitching picture. If it was someone else, she would be stunned. But when she heard what song he was playing, her expression became calmer, and there was no smile in her eyes. Xiaoran's thoughts were all on her. At this time, he could clearly feel the change in her mood. The notes he played became softer and softer. Finally, he put down the jade flute and looked at her in panic. Qingyan, did I not play it well? Chu Qingyan calmly looked at him. After a while, she slowly said, It was good, but you shouldn't have played it for me. Xiaoran didn't even have time to be happy after receiving confirmation. The last sentence was like a bucket of cold water being poured over his head. He bit his lip and said, Why? You will be engaged in half a month's time. You should play this song for Miss Jing, she said to him patiently. He was still a child and should be guided more. When he heard, he immediately argued. This song was meant to be played for my beloved. I don't have any feelings for her. Qingyan, don't misunderstand. I didn't misunderstand. Chu Qingyan's expression became serious and her voice also became more solemn. It's because of the meaning behind this song that you can't play it for others. I can't either. You're still young and ignorant about matters of the heart. It's very possible that you'll mistake friendship for love. I'm young. Qingyan, you're younger than me by 3 years. Xiaoran impatiently stepped forward. I truly like you. Why do you always misunderstand me? Xiaoran, I'm your future imperial sister-in-law. Do you think it's appropriate for you to be like this? Chu Qingyan's voice hardened. Those who knew her well knew that she was close to exploding. So she was still worried about this. Xiaoran's expression softened. If you're worried about imperial brother, don't worry. I'll compensate him. After all, you two were forced to be together because of that imperial edict. As long as imperial father says it, your marriage won't count. In the future, we can be together openly. Chu Qingyan was also angry at this time. Xiaoran, where did we give you the wrong impression that we were forced to be together? Your imperial brother and I love each other. How many times do I have to say this before you'll listen? Could it be that you only choose to listen to what others say to you? If that's the case, then I have nothing to say to you. Xiaoran was shocked and his heart ached. He unsteadily took a step back, his eyes filled with pain and disbelief. You and imperial brother are so different in age. How can you have feelings for each other? Also, he's so dull and you're so lively. You shouldn't be able to talk about the same thing. Chu Qingyan looked at Xiaoran's shocked and sorrowful face. Her heart couldn't bear it, but she had to cut through this layer of window paper at this time. Whether it was for her or for him, it was beneficial. Chapter 1331. Xiaoran, do you believe that there is fate in this world? Chu Qingyan slowly walked under the tree, intentionally or unintentionally widening the distance between the two, and then turned to look at him. Xiao Ran looked at her with a hurt and blank expression, waiting for her answer. Your eldest brother and I were originally two unrelated people. If it wasn't for that imperial edict, there would be no possibility of us meeting in this life. However, your imperial grandfather and imperial father made the decision, and because of the marriage, we were bound together. This is the fate that brought us together. Speaking of which, when I first learned about the marriage, I was against it. I didn't want to be a victim of a political marriage. I was forced to enter the King of England's household. However, after interacting with him, I found that he wasn't like the rumors outside. He was gentle and attentive, and was a rare partner to accompany for a lifetime. I am willing to hold hands with him and grow old together. Chu Qingyan spoke gently, with the tenderness and sweetness of Marchen Jiangnan. No matter how one looked at it, she seemed like a woman who was deeply in love. However, this scene was very painful in Xiao Ran's eyes. Those words were like thousands of arrows, fiercely stabbing into his heart. How could it be? You? Xiao Ran shook his head, and the stormy waves in his eyes finally turned into determination. No, Qingyan, you must be lying to me. Seeing that he was still deceiving himself, Chu Qingyan was very disappointed. She fixed her eyes and spoke to him seriously for the last time. Xiao Ran, what do I have to do to make you believe that I'm telling the truth? In a relationship, height, age, and family background are not distance. The distance is whether or not you love each other. Moreover, your eldest brother is only in his early 20s, very young. What makes you think that we don't have common topics to talk about? Speaking to her, her tone was a bit agitated. Speaking of his reticence, isn't it because of you? Every one of you will only push him out when you encounter a problem. No matter if it is a fire pit or a mountain of knives, you don't even blink. In this world, there is no more ruthless executioner than you. Watching him go through fire and water in front of you. Do you have the nerve to enjoy this golden age behind his back? I didn't, Xiao Ran immediately argued, as if someone had stepped on his tail. No? Then what are you doing now? You should know the reason why your imperial mother brought me into the palace, right? Xiao Ran, why do you think that as long as you want it, your imperial brother will give it to you? Have you asked your imperial brother's opinion? Don't do to others what you don't want done to you. You are really too disappointing. Chu Qingyan shook her head, her disappointment evident in her words. Qingyan being so disappointed in him made Xiao Ran panic. He reached out and grabbed her hand, anxiously explaining, Qingyan, don't be disappointed in me. I really didn't mean to hurt you. Imperial Mother is doing this for my own good. She doesn't want me to be immersed in the pain of lovesickness. Moreover, I really want to see you. Chu Qingyan calmly looked at him. Xiao Ran, let go of me. Let go of me. Give up on me. Xiao Ran met her calm and beautiful eyes. Hearing her say let go 3 times, his heart was filled with shame and anger. His grip on her wrist tightened as he said word by word. Qingyan, I will never let go of you. Chu Qingyan frowned and forcefully flung his hand away. Her voice was indifferent as she said, Your Highness 4th Prince, please conduct yourself with dignity. Seeing the impatience in her eyes, the alienation in her words, and the way she addressed him in the end, Xiao Ran was angry and resentful. Qingyan, could it be that I can't compare to eldest brother? Looking at the person in front of her who was doing his best, although she shouldn't continue speaking out of selfishness, in order to let him see reality clearly, Chu Qingyan closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her voice was solemn. You can't compare to him in any way. This was the truth. Whether it was beauty in the eye of the beholder or an objective evaluation, her big ice block was unparalleled in the world. Xiao Ran's eyes widened when he heard this. He looked at her in disbelief. So in her eyes he wasn't worth a single cent. He had always been a favored son of heaven. Imperial father and imperial mother said that he was smart and witty. The ministers were also full of praise for him. He worked hard to learn knowledge, diligently practiced martial arts, and was proficient in etiquette, music, archery, and imperial calligraphy. But in the end, she ignored him because of eldest brother. Unwillingness, humiliation, sadness, disappointment, and sadness filled his entire heart. Qingyan, what you're saying is unfair. I'm also working very hard. He looked at her with melancholy, and his eyes were filled with unwillingness. Chu Qingyan sighed lightly and looked at him. Xiao Ran, you're a flower that grew in a greenhouse. He's a tree that's been exposed to the wind and sun. What you're saying is indeed unfair. Xiao Ran's eyes widened. These words were even more piercing than the words just now. He was stunned in place. No matter if it was in the palace or in the court, everyone said that he had more talent and ability than eldest brother. But no one had ever told him so directly that he couldn't compare to eldest brother. Could he really not compare? She felt that she had already said it. Whether or not he could understand was up to fate. Seeing that the sky was so dark, she didn't want to be entangled with him anymore. She turned to leave. Sensing her intentions, Xiao Ran blocked her path. Under her unhappy gaze, he lowered his voice as much as possible and gently said, Qingyan, perhaps I really can't compare to Imperial Brother, but I still have a long life. I can learn. I can work hard to improve myself and surpass eldest brother. Can you give me a chance? Why do you have to do this? Chu Qingyan was first stunned by his persistence. Then she pursed her lips and frowned. She had wasted an entire night talking to him so much, but she didn't think that he wouldn't listen to a single word. How could he be so stubborn? She really wanted to pry open his head and see what was inside. Xiao Ran looked at her. Her black hair and red clothes contrasted strongly, but it made her look even more beautiful. That pair of lively eyes blinked on her palm-sized face. Every time they blinked, it was like they brushed past the softest part of his heart. Her delicate lips were a light red. The moonlight shone through the gaps and fell on her body, making her delicate face look even more vivid. She was so beautiful that he was mesmerized. Xiao Ran absent-mindedly walked forward and reached out to grab her wrist, wanting to pull her into his embrace. Qingyan, give me a chance. I will treat you well for the rest of my life. Xiao Ran let go. She had lost all her internal energy and was unable to move his strength. Chu Qingyan looked at him in alarm. She didn't think that he would suddenly come close. Qingyan, I really like you. Pa. Before Xiao Ran could finish his affectionate words, a slap landed on his face. After the cold touch, there was a burning pain. He took a step back and looked at the person in front of him with red eyes in disbelief. Qingyan, you hit me? That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.